I hope your faces were feeling adequately melted there by the Midnight. That was, The Midnight's one of the cool artists on the internet who lets you use their music on stream and stuff like that. So we had the Midnight playing. What is up, chat gang? How's it going? Wow, popping off. Let's go. All the hype. Look at this. Big hype, too. Appreciate you all. So this is the return of the Mephisto, the patented. No other Warhammer streamer does it quite like I do it. This is a return of the patented call-in stream. Remember, you're the show within the show. This is your opportunity to make that. Well, I mean, it's already kind of literal since chat is always literally on the screen. But you can join me and lend your dulcet tones to the stream by hopping in Discord. We're going to use the rogue encampment like a green room, or in the actual radio broadcast, it'd be called the screener, right? So that'll be like my call screener. You'll sit in there. I will occasionally, as the show is going on tonight, I will be polling people from the rogue encampment into the chat with me. It's a locked channel I'm in, so please, if I know a couple of you are moderators on my Discord, don't jump in ahead of time. I'll pull you in when I'm ready to field some questions. It'll be like a radio show. I'll take the questions kind of like on air, like, oh, I think we get time for a couple questions. So you'll be able to actually like physically join the show, ask some questions, anything Age of Sigmar, or honestly, I'm an open book. Ask me basically anything you want, and I'll answer it. You'll get your sort of you'll get to be a part of the show for a little bit, and then I'll sort of hang up on you, send you back into the green room, and I'll just, like I said, I'll be taking callers throughout the night. Kicker dropping 1,000 RDP to remind everyone Chat Gang ain't nothing to mess with, and Hobby Bear popping off for 1,000 RDP to remind everyone that Chat Gang ain't nothing to mess with. We already have some questions already. And feel free, if you don't want to do the Discord thing, as always, again, you are the show within the show, Chat Gang. So talk amongst yourself. Ask questions. It's a lot easier once I get going here if you put my name in it, because then it highlights it. My bot will actually highlight questions for me. So if you say, hey, Meph, if it's at me, and you really want to make sure I see your question, you can actually spend some RDP and highlight your comment, and that really makes sure that I see your questions there in chat. So be sure to use those. Appreciate that. I think we had a Takeover Mars with a gift sub to Magos. So thank you so much for that gift sub. I'm gonna go ahead and make this pane bigger here so I can see everyone a little bit better. Go ahead and pull that over here. Have you seen the OBR Battalion leak from Techless? Locks you into Staliarch Lords. Liege has to have the command trait and artifact, and the benefit is on a 4-up. Refund the RDP for using Staliarch. That's it. That's lame. That's lame. Anyone have trying out a scheme? Cheers. I've got my blend here. This is a red blend. 2017, good year for cheap wine. I tend to drink Cabs and Zins if you ever watch me drinking wine on stream. So, Takeover Mars is angry at LRL right now. Yeah. I understand. We can talk about. We'll talk about. I don't think I've given my LRL take yet. There is the Discord link provided by everyone's favorite space wizard robot in Cantabot. So if you click on that that'll get you a link to the Chat Gang Discord, and you can hop into the Rogue Encampment, which is a voice chat. Again, I'll be using that as the green room, as the call screener, as the show goes on this evening. I did see the leaks. I saw the rules. In a sentence, no, sir, I don't like them. And I'll get, like, how do I put this? You know what? I'll come back to LRL because at the top of the show, there's something I really want to get out the way first and foremost. I shared it. I retweeted Doom and Darkness. Doom and Darkness, as many of you know, a content creator from the Upside Down. Really, probably known more for the battle reports. Um, but for me, Doom and Darkness was the very, very first content creator I ever watched. Like, if you can imagine a time before Heywo was Heywo, he was just, helping me kind of learn Age of Sigmar. His first video, he went to Adepticon and like came back and he did his Adepticon video. He ended up doing that, the Stormcast spoof video, and that was where Heywo. But when I was first learning about Age of Sigmar, I actually didn't watch Vince Venturella until Heywo was basically on. I think it was the first video I ever watched was a video of Doom Michael in his truck at work talking about Age of Sigmar. That was the very very first. That was the very very first video I ever saw in Age of Sigmar. It has influenced who I am in this community in more ways than I can ever describe. That just seeing someone passionate about the game so much so they couldn't help but talk about it while they're at work. And I've even gone on to like release my little meth in truck videos as like a little bit of a spoof, an attempt to appease the algorithm and pay homage to, one of my greatest heroes in the community. It's sad. Doom's a legend. He is understandably, he's got some RL business to take care of. I don't think it's forever. A man of that much passion can't stay away from this community. But I wish him all the best luck in whatever endeavors, and I will miss him. He would do his little like hobby hangouts and turn them into videos, and I remember, some of my favorite, like, I struggle with imposter syndrome. I'm pretty open about most of my mental health stuff. If this is your first RantCast, welcome. I suppose. I remember, he actually like asked me like, hey, who wants to hop on a hobby stream type thing, and I would just like hop in Skype. The only reason I have Skype anymore is because of Doom. And I would hop into Skype, and I remember sitting there with, it was him, Tom, and Jack in one of them, Jack from Rerolling Ones, and I was just kind of staring around like I wasn't even painting at the time. I was taking notes for Soulbound, and like at once, my imposter syndrome was like just smashing into me, but on the flip side, it was like it was like, is this that to use a Hamilton quote, like, is this the room? Am I in the room? Like, had I made it inside that room? So it was this like utterly like out of body experience for me was when that happened. But it was, that was the day I kind of felt like I might actually be one of them. And it was a small gesture. I didn't really talk a ton on that particular one, because I really can't talk and type at the same time, or talk and write at the same time. But I just remember kind of being awestruck with some of my heroes, and then also like kind of being equal, and that was there. So, I mean, Doom is indeed an OG. He gave me advice when I started out doing RantCast. One of the pieces of advice he gave me, I remember the conversation was my titles. He's like, I don't know what the fuck any of that means. Like, just in that perfect deadpan way, right? That Doom has. And the other tip he gave me was to make sure that I have Brendan on my show as much as possible. So those were the two tips he gave me. Amid like just other generic advice, and so again, I have nothing but great things to say about Doom, and I wish him all the best. And I'm not gonna say goodbye. I'm gonna riff on everyone's favorite manic cartoon tiger and say TTFN, ta-ta for now. So that's That's it. I'm not gonna get choked up. I haven't had nearly enough wine for that, and I gotta get some Doom water before he stops making content, though. I'm gonna send him a message. I gotta get me some of that Doom water. It's imagine how much the stonks are gonna go up on Doom water. Dreamer dropping a tier 1 sub for 4 years of friendship. Thank you so much, Dreamer. Mm. So, cheers to Doom. And I guess this is the part where I say, I am, of course, the Magical Mister Mephisto, the most dangerous man in Age of Sigmar. Welcome to RantCast 89. Whoever had to bust out the actual radio voice for y'all. Tonight I'm going to be talking about the 7 deadly sins of game design. And I'm going to take it from a take that my expertise is in. So I actually, you'll get an anecdote about my foray into game design, actually, which is something I mention and I allude to a lot, but I never really talk about it. So I'm going to talk about that a little bit, and then I'm going to talk about these 7 deadly sins. We're also going to get a little gasp philosophy. I'm going to talk about Aristotle and Rene Descartes, and we're going to talk about some stuff like there, some basic logical methods for helping us identify it. I have the poor, unfortunate timing to be doing a design show the day after Vince Venturella did one. I wish I had the foresight to watch his entire episode. I made it to them talking about LRL to Tristan's question. And then I finished dinner, and man, if I had been really smart, I'd have just left that whole thing play, and then I could just say that stuff and sound smart. But I'm going to take it from my perspective. One thing I did catch them mentioning is when we talk about game design, it's not necessarily a thing about power, like good design versus bad design. And one thing I 100% agree with Vince on is that we don't have, I think the average member of the community doesn't have the language, doesn't have the vernacular to talk about rules design. So by giving you these 7 deadly sins, I'm going to help you sound intelligent when you're roasting the faction you hate the most. Because let's be honest, most people are going to use this for evil. If you didn't, you wouldn't be a fan of RantCast, perhaps the greatest online villain there is right now, me. But yeah, so when you get into these discussions about design, when you see something that you don't like, you'll be able to go, I remember this being one of the sins Mephisto talked about, and this is why I don't like this. And you'll be able to identify some of those things going through, and that's my intent of the show tonight. And again, the call lines are open. So if you hop into the Discord, if you hang out in the Rogue encampment, I will pull in callers throughout the show. So and then we'll go with LRL. Let's see. Kicker says, so this means I get to be disappointed that I don't get a Cities of Sigmar army with 1 in 4 death units being allowed. Yeah, I don't know about that. Yeah, I don't see that happening. Severeth, Lore Seeker, Wind Mage, Ruse, Blades, Archers, 1450. So I saw the LRL leaks. What in particular are you wondering? Yeah. And as for what I'm drinking, it's just a red blend. It's I don't know, Frontera, I think is the brand. Frontera, something like that. Red blend. It was on sale. My favorite type of wine. On sale wine. It's okay. It's my second favorite. My first favorite is box wine. Yeah. Delicious. But I do have a bottle of this mango Pepsi here handy for when I get through the wine. And disappointed that we may yet see some sort of 1 in 4 mechanic. I don't think Cities of Sigmar is going to do a Shyish city quite like that. I think I mean, LON might be. Sorry. Well, their lack of a punch, despite their movement shenanigans. As far as the ruse specifically go, they're clearly not for damage, right? And I didn't catch how many points they were. This text is so tiny. Lumineth subfactions. Yeah, I don't see how many points the ruse are. It's really going to come down to like, I mean, the mobility aspect is something that LRL players are complaining about not having, and who knows, right? Like, now they've got some extra mobility in a janky, horrible way, and fast cavalry that basically breaks the rules of the game with their pile-in shenanigans. Like, does anyone remember just like when Skinks basically all their War Scroll said was have an annoying retreat mechanic? And how like annoying that was and how many games it just absolutely pilfered? 150 for 5 for the ruse. Feels steep for movement shenanigans alone. You know, part of what made Skinks great is they were dirt cheap, right? Yeah. G-Dead showing up and dropping 5 gift subs for a total of 21. Thank you so much for that. Thanks for supporting the stream. Yeah, so this is one of those things where I think we need to zoom out a little bit. The points feel high. But like you're taking down, like you can take them in an army and like they are pillow fisted, but your archers can help kind of bring the extra damage to the spot you want them to go and steal. So I think 120 for Blade Lords is insanity. Like that they good. You're gonna see people spam the army of that. And you're also going to see the LRL in cities, like people already wondering, like, how do I break this? Taking LRL units, like, do I want archers with Phoenix Guard? Yeah. Right? Like, just people already salivating over archer spam plus Phoenix Guard. Like, awesome. I'm looking forward to cities continuing to be a problem. The Blade Lords are... They were called Sword Masters before, they're called Blade Lords now, right? Oh man, Meph's hair looking like ruby red. Yeah, so I've told y'all before, my hair is something of fascination to people. All I did was take a shower today after work, and this is what it does. My hair cannot be contained if it doesn't wish to be contained. It just does this. Yeah, Blade Lords aren't battle line. Um, and again, I didn't see like the whole battle tome to see if like they're able to, like enable in the right sub alliance or whatever. Ruse have a nation that gives them battle line, yeah. See, and that can soften the blow for like taking Ruse, right, and pulling some shenanigans. 150 feels expensive for what is ultimately a super annoying trick without a lot of teeth. But again, you got to take the whole army in context. A lot of LRL players have been confessing they feel like they aren't mobile enough. I mean, that's the mobility you want, and your archer spam is what, about 30 inches threat? Doesn't care about line of sight. You can threat with those things because they're going to get about 32 inches of movement plus a 6-inch pylon in any direction, right? They're blazing fast. With the tables going down in size, there's nowhere those Ruse won't be able to get to, and probably nowhere you can't deploy your archers proactively to cover them. So I think there's going to be some neat. I think there's going to be some cool play in that respect. I'm annoyed at the continued trend in general in Age of Sigmar that wants us to fight in combat less. Rules that make us fight in combat less annoys me the most. This is a combat game. The game should be dictated by like positioning in combat, and it seems that the best units in the game are ones that like fight without getting attacked back or avoid combat, and that bothers me. 120 and they're better than my favorite unit. I'm so happy for them. Grumble, grumble, grumble. Yeah. No, I know. I mean, this is that the only time you should look in your neighbor's bowl to see if they have enough, right? That's one of those categories when other armies are getting buffed. Do we need to know if Giant Robin Hood Rue gives any hideous buffs to the archers? I wish Source were actually going to be a nice change. I'm happy you did, G-Dead. I'm so happy you bought a Nexus to mangle. I want Sons of Behemoth players. I want this to be a rule universally. I want Sons of Behemoth players to bring the terrain to a tournament that they are smashing. I would love that. You automatically get my favorite opponent vote for that. So I'll go ahead and check the call screener here. No one on deck, so we'll go ahead and move on. So the first thing I want to talk about is something that I feel like Tyler Emerson would have went into had he been able to make it tonight. He had some family stuff come up, unavoidable. It has to be dealt with, and I'm sending him all my good vibes. He's one of the greatest people in this community, and so I'm bringing up first principles on his. I feel like on his behalf. It's something he talks about a lot. When he kind of pitched the topic for highs and lows of design, which I had to pivot from, he's always conscientious of first principles. So first principles, there's a if you do a Google search, you're gonna get a couple different results. I'm familiar with it in my sort of like amateur enjoyment of philosophy. Um, so you've actually heard me talk about one of these philosophers a bunch. I'll get back to that in a second. But Aristotle's kind of like the initial one understood to be like the first principles guy. Um, praise to the horned rat. Um, so like when Aristotle refers to first principles, he's basically saying think like a scientist, and saying what your first principle is in formal logic is that a basic assumption that you like reduce everything down to, and once you get to a place where you can no longer reduce that assumption, you have found the basic principle. Now this is going to be important for design, and I'll tie that in a little bit. So this is a logical way of thinking about stuff. Kind of boring. Um, the other philosopher, very sort of heavily tied to first principles and doing it from a little bit of a different angle, is when I talk about often, which is Descartes. So Rene Descartes, you hear me say Cartesian doubt an awful lot. That I live my life with a healthy dose of Cartesian doubt. This is kind of this is what we're kind of talking about here. Basically, Descartes proposed that you should doubt everything. And if you doubt everything, you'll get to a point where you can no longer doubt something. Right? That once you get to that point where you've doubted everything I know, I doubt it. I look at it skeptically, and I boil it down. And what I have left, if I can no longer doubt it, that's going to be a first principle. I talk about Cartesian doubt because, whether it's if I'm talking about like I think LRL are too good. Well, now I need to doubt my own belief in that. Well, are they too good? Well, what about this? And what about this? And then I'm going to go, and as I move my way through it, one of the first things I'm going to do as I break that down to reach that sort of like first principle level is doubt that the pile-in rule is good. Or whatever it is I'm trying to analyze. I'm going to doubt it until I strip it down to a point where I can no longer doubt it, right? So, like, for me, what I believe at a fundamental level is good for the game is going to be a little bit different from what other people believe. But I need to strip down, I need to sort of, it's like Mass Effect. Garrus is always running calibrations. You always want to be running calibrations on what you believe. You always want to live your life with that healthy dose of Cartesian doubt, especially when you're talking about design, especially when you're talking about things that you're trying to look at empirically. Doubt is a very useful mechanic in our. It's a very useful tool in our belt of logic. So those are kind of like the two main ones. Descartes' one I tend to lean on more heavily, and then you've got Aristotle's going to be your sort of classical. Which brings us to Elon Musk. I think I've been caught on a rant or two about how I actually think Elon Musk is a really dumb smart guy. And his genius is overstated, but if you search first principles, you're going to probably get a TED Talk from him talking about his belief in first principles, which is a very self-help version of analyzing and understanding first principles. So he, like Aristotle, sort of begins by identifying your current assumption. So, like, what is your assumption about things? It's hard to analyze something if you don't even know what it is you're assuming about the thing. It's really hard to break something down into its elements if you're not even really sure what your read is. If you're like, I don't like this, why don't you like it? Right? You're going to need to find that. You're going to need to find that, like, initial assumption. You have to identify that. This is very heavy. This is more fun when I have someone to banter with. From there, you look at the problem that you have, and then hey, what are my assumptions? Then you're going to look at the thing, and you're going to break down the problem you have, whatever that may be. You're going to break that down to sort of its fundamental principles. That's going to be that Aristotle side of things. Once you've reduced it down, you can no longer. It's like fractions, right? When you reduce a fraction down to a certain point, you can no longer reduce it down to another fraction. You found the sort of like that lowest common denominator. You found that fundamental principle. And then from there, you're going to make a new solution out of nowhere. You're going to come up with a new solution. We've stripped down, we've identified things, we've stripped them down, and now it's time to solve the problem. This is going to help us when we analyze rules for things. Unrelated to Cartesian first principles, what are the two cool big models behind your right shoulder? Thank you for asking. The models, because this is fucking Dracula from Castlevania. That's a Revenant from Doom, and this is Logan, Wolverine Logan. And then I've got a Keeper of Secrets here that G-Dead actually sent me for my Slaanesh army. And I have a Counts as Keeper of Secrets, a conversion that Mars made me from a Void Dragon, and it looks like a Marathi wing. This is going to be my Shalaxi. I had to perform some surgery on it because it got dinged up a little bit in the ship, but it's good now. So this will probably be my Shalaxi. This will be like Keeper summoning board, and then I've got two Keepers that'll actually run in my army. So there you go. Yeah, Dracula and Wolverine are fighting each other, and the Revenant from Doom is running interference. Oh, also there's Little Mac. Little Mac is here too. My son got me that for Christmas. So there you go. Sick models. Yeah, they're just like stock standard stuff. The Revenant's pretty fucking sweet. That came with Doom 2016 Collector's Edition. Get some wine here. All right. So, in writing, a problem-solving technique. So when you start writing stuff, and this goes into whether you think you're a seeder or a pantser. A seeder is you fly by the seat. A pantser, sorry, or a planner. A pantser is you fly by the seat of your pants, like you just sit down and you write. And then a planner, we tend to. I'm a little bit more on the planner side of things when it comes to writing. Um, Specifically talking about the conversion. Yeah, that's Mars's conversion. Go follow his channel on YouTube. Take over Mars. That's his conversion. Um, yeah. So pantser and planning, whatever. One of the main things when you plan to write, we talk about rules of writing, premise. All about the premise. Premise can essentially be is your first principles of writing. So like you'll have a story premise. What are you trying to say with your story? Love wins might be your premise. Love always wins in my story, no matter what. Whenever a problem comes up, and I think about my premise, and I'm stumped in my writing, I go, what was my premise to begin with? Oh, love wins. And so then you look at the scene that you're writing and you go, okay, well, this scene that I'm stumped on, love should win. The thing I'm writing should prove that premise. And you keep moving on. Characters will have character premises. So you'll have a character premise that sometimes clashes with the story premise, and then this causes conflict, and this can be really good writing. You can have the more complexities, the more of a web you weave between character premises and your story premise, the more robust and interesting your story gets. Usually, when we're talking about a story that is bad, that we don't like, Twilight comes to mind. Twilight is very inconsistent in its premise. And so when people are talking about how Twilight is bad, it is usually because it fails, not on like how's the language, how's the writing, like those things are like honestly completely tertiary to how good a story truly is. Usually when a story is bad, not like the writing of the story. When just a story at first blush, why don't I like this story about the thing? It's usually some sort of incongruency between the premise and the execution. We get this all the time in rules. When you don't like a rule, activation wars come immediately to mind. Like, one, it was too powerful, and we'll get into some of the deadly sins and why this just all of this stuff reinforces why we hated the activation wars. The activation wars pretty much trigger 5 out of 7 of the deadly sins of design. And I'll get to those in a second. But also, it feels like activation wars are smashing into the premise. The reason, like the notion that if I charge you, I get to fight. That feels like a basic premise of the entire game. And so when something goes and defies that, it just like even if you can't say why you hate it, it's because that friction between the premise and the execution. Now, good rules writers and good writers of stories, they might sometimes break their own premise because rule of cool, and there are reasons why one would break a premise or break your first principles. The first principles really, really help us when we're at an impasse with something, or when we're trying to identify why something sucks and how to make it better. That's when we really need our first principles, when we need our premise, when we need to check that. A conscientious writer is going to always, when they get to something that might be contentious or something that like they're not certain about, or something they don't have a good excuse for breaking the rules, they're going to look to their premise and go, crap, I can't write this. I can't sell this. I can't push this because it violates my first principles. It violates my premise. Okay? You can catch up on chat here real quick. Great feck video today. I didn't get a chance to watch it yet. I had to prep show and do all kinds of stuff. I will check it out though, because you said the magic words. You said it's about death. Fecklore and fluff is fantastic. It's I think their fluff is like 10 out of 10. They're the Yeah. Yeah, flesh eater courts are fantastic. So fantastic, Vince, who is on record constantly hating on death, is buying into flesh eater courts. So if a faction can get like a death hater to play it, you know it's good. Yeah, so exactly to your point, Magos. Yeah, you've picked up on something really great here. Do I think you say I'll read the whole thing in case people are listening in pure audio. This is a super interesting way at looking at why design fails and succeeds. Do you think some armies just kind of don't have a premise and that's why they fail, like Beasts of Chaos? Yeah, yeah, or conflicting premises. Oftentimes we hear something about how like too many cooks spoil the sauce, right? Um, this can be a problem in design if you don't have like a hierarchy or a structure. So if everyone's contributing stuff and everyone goes into it with their own premise, you can get friction with that premise or the first principles. Um, and again, I've arranged this discussion in a way that I approach these things. Now, if you watch Vince's show, he has a job in development and backend and stuff like that. So he's probably going to look at it from his sort of developer side of things as someone who's written an RPG. He's going to have one perspective on what makes good design and what makes bad design, right? And I'm not contradicting his. Go watch that too. I personally haven't yet. If you go and watch Haywo a couple months ago did a design video where he talked a lot about Mark Rosewater and Richard Garfield from Magic the Gathering and their approach to design, right? I'm going to come at this today from my experiences as a writer, and we're going to get into the game I tried to design in a little bit, and it failed. So we'll get into that in a little bit. I I think I see the world this way in terms of like premise and trying to prove your premise and if the friction and stuff. So I'm sharing my way, and hopefully we get some common language out of all of this, that when we go and we to talk about design on the forums, or you go watch a Warhammer like weekly video or Honest Wargamer and they start talking about bad design, you have language, you are equipped to start really thinking about that stuff, right? From a very from that logical sense. Not to say that it's like an objective certainty, because that is the opposite of what we learned from Descartes, right? Doubt. We have that Cartesian doubt. But you're going to have an objective way of approaching the topic and really distilling meaningful conversation. That's the hope. So back to your question. Do I think that's why Beasts of Chaos fail? I think that Beasts of Chaos, when I read it, I feel like it was a more like it is a failure of premise. But I feel like it's a failure of premise because it was like too many. It feels, when I'm reading Beasts of Chaos, it feels like the premise is either scattered in different directions or multiple people contributed to it, and it didn't have the hand of a strong game producer or what would be a strong developer designer relationship. So board games, just from my conversations with Travis Winter of Atlas Games and Emmett Byrne from Cubicle 7 and Elaine Lithgow from DigiSprite Games, from all the conversations I've had with board game designers, they tend to have a pretty rigid structure of, at the top you have like you sort of have your producer or your sort of overriding producer sort. Now, no doubt Games Workshop has that. They're just kind of like obscure in this process a little bit. But it also feels like they give their writers a lot of say, and they don't have a no guy in that process of someone to say no when writers go too crazy, right? It doesn't feel like they have that. It feels like their designers wear their developer hat. To say that another way, a designer tends to be the creative drive of a project. I'm personally more interested in the design side of things. I want to write really wacky stuff. Okay. The fact that I heard that Games Workshop, as one of their core principles, they don't want rules language. They want rules written with prose. Now, I think hey, I brought this up to Haywood. He just immediately like deadpan snarked it, and he hates the idea to begin with. But he'd be more on the developer side of things. As a designer, I think that's fucking awesome. Because like you're telling me that like when I go to write a rule, I'm gonna like just like write the crazy thing I think it should do, and then I hand it to a developer after I'm done with the crazy cool thing I think it should do, and the developer's gonna look at it. And developers then, those are your like sort of computer coders or your technical side of things. Those are going to be your technical rules language. They're going to grab that and go, disgusting. They should feel disgust when they read my fucking prosy, crazy, over-the-top creative rules. And then they're going to bring it in line. And then we're all going to take it to our producer above us, or, this could be a maybe whatever your company structure name is, right? Whatever that person above them in that hierarchy. They're going to take it to that person whose entire thing is essentially a continuity editor. Their whole thing, you could call them the chief editor-in-chief. You take it to them, and they would look at the whole thing and go for a cohesion edit. This doesn't fit there, because they're going to have their first principles, right? They're going to be really mindful of the product. They're going to be really mindful of delivering the product. Like, what state do I want this product to go to print in? They're going to be the ones who are all about the roadmap, right? And, they're the ones who are going to know the release schedule. They're the ones who are very mindful of that stuff. So they're going to get it from me, the designer, and Haywo, the developer, and we're going to walk up to it with the thing, and they're just going to like, oh my gosh, why you're writing way too much about blood. Way too much blood. And I'm like, but it's cool, like the Viscerator unit I'm trying to design. And they're like, okay, like this isn't a corn army, tone back the blood. Or they're gonna have rules things like, so that's kind of a bit of a product. Back to the Beasts of Chaos thing, I really feel like there's just an inconsistency in, yes, premise, but also editing. Like, there is no cohesive first principle in that book. Whether it's multiple writers not getting on the same page, a weak producer on the top, or editor on the top, like, I read it like 7 people wrote that book. I get the feeling when I read it, 7 people wrote that book. And that's knowing nothing about their process. Because I'm just looking at the premise and feeling the friction in the premise or the first principles. Like, I'm just feeling that friction. Again, like, you don't, like, people are pretty intuitive with this stuff. Again, I use Twilight as an example because you don't realize, like, you can make fun of the girl stuff about it, and I think that's what most people tend to gravitate towards is the Team Jacob, Team Edward thing. Honestly, most of that's just fine. The problem is the premise shifts, and it doesn't earn it, and people pick up on that friction. Just like someone reading Beast of Chaos, Magos, you identified, like, this premise thing feels wrong. Like, yeah, exactly. You don't even need to be woke on this sort of stuff. I mean, that fucking tracks. If that's the literal story, it shows up in the book. It's a book where the rules writer kept getting fired or pulled to another project, and they kept having to hand it off to a new person, which isn't, like, horrible. Okay, like in games writing and under big projects. Oh, and that's not even before we start talking about video game development, which I'm going to talk about a little bit later and how that ties in. Like, that's not uncommon. The thing is when you have a situation like that, you need a really strong editor/producer type. You need a really strong, like, on that dev side, you need someone really strong with that stuff. Because they're going to know their first principles, and they're going to be able to bring it all back in line. But yeah, that's the feel. They're going to need somebody on that top side. Like, we like to shit on managers and stuff like that in terms of, like, yes, when I get on my anti-capitalist rants, I really kind of, like, despise management in the process of things like capitalism and wage labor and stuff like that. But talking about the creative process and getting something to go to print, and you need strong managers. It's like a GM in tabletop dungeon, a tabletop RPG. Like Dungeons and Dragons or Soulbound or Vampire the Masquerade or Palladium Books riffs. Like, you need a good GM is going to go, okay, I've got this story I want to tell. Bad guy crashes the moon into the earth. That's my story. And at the end of the day, I'm going to try to move everything towards my premise. And my premise is actually going to be something very specific, and it's going to be like a specific umbrella I can put over everything, right? If I have a strong premise, so it's not even going to be moon crashes into Earth. It's going to be something like ideological, like hatred causes destruction. It's going to be my premise, right? Like that's and that's my premise that I'm going into the campaign I'm writing. So my players, all my player characters are going to have their own strong premises, right? They're going to have the character premises. There's entire chapters in books about creating a character. They might not go into it knowing their character premise when they first make the character. But by the end of it, they should have a really strong idea about their character premise. And so me, the GM, I'm going to have my game premise as the GM, but I'm going to collaborate with my players to tell the best possible story I can by seeking harmony with their premises and my campaign premise, right? Now, your manager or your producer or your editor in that sort of design dev relationship is going to be like your GM. Not necessarily, they're a player themselves, right? Like, GMs are players. This is something people forget. They just are looking at that product and where it's going in it from a different angle. And really good ones you're gonna get the best when you have you have that harmony between the different premises, and you're able to bring it and culminate under your one really great umbrella. That's where you're gonna get the tragic death scene of one of the main characters, right? Because the hatred and stuff like that. And you're going to have, like, one of the party members kind of backstab the party, but then try to redeem themselves in the end. That's when you're getting all that good shit. Because the premises, they will cause conflict in a narrative sense, there should be a harmony in how the premises come through in the story. So. Anyone in chat have any tips for stabilizing Twitch connections? The first and foremost thing you should do is in the corner of Twitch, you should have the little like cog for settings. It's quality defaults to auto. Drop the quality to the lowest you can get it at, and that stabilizes stuff mostly. Pardon me. All right, so like I said, first principles, premise. Keep these in mind. These are really important. This is the foundation of everything we talk about in rules and stuff like that. The rules of writing you'll hear me talk about when I'm talking about like when I write a fiction story. It's the same thing for rules writing. It's the same thing for nonfiction writing. Even nonfiction stories have a premise. If I'm going to write a biography about my mom, my premise is, my mom lived a complicated life but was a good person. Or that's a crappy premise, but I'd have to refine it down, and because you want it to be a premise should usually be something you can say in like 4 or 5 words. Like it should be punchy, like as just a punch to the mouth, no room for interpretation. That's a strong premise. My one story is victory through sacrifice. That's the premise of the whole thing. So, like, at any time something happens, like, I have to look at, like, well, how do the characters succeed? There has to be sacrifice. Like, that's the premise of my one story. That's a pretty straightforward premise. Anytime I have a question about the direction of my story that I'm writing, what is it? Victory through sacrifice. Like, the one I'm working on for Vampire has a lot to do with inner demons. We're all monsters inside, I think is the premise. But that doesn't give me an action. You need it to, like, a good premise should have action. That doesn't have action, so I need to refine that premise, right? That's why I haven't run that game yet. I'm still trying to figure out the good premise. Same thing in story in rules writing. When you sit down to write a rule about a charge mechanic, your book's gonna have a premise, right? Like, Bone Daddies collect the tithe, right? Like, there's your premise. They collect the tithe. That's what they do. Undead supermen take your bones. That's your premise. So that's my overriding premise. When I go to write a rule, I'm going to think about that rule. Okay, they need a charge. How do they take your bones when they charge you, right? Oh, impact hits. Oh, okay, cool, impact hits. What am I going to do with impact hits? Da-da-da-da-da-da, right? So that's how I would approach writing a rule in an Ossiarch Bone Reaper's book, right? My developer, whoever handed me down the task to write for that book, says, "This is what we want you to write," and I would go, "Okay, okay." Like I would sort through that, and then like now I have, okay, I need a cavalry unit. How does my cavalry unit serve the premise? Okay, now I need to write a rule. How do I write a rule that serves the premise? And so on and so forth, and so on, and yada yada yada. Now, I'm trying to ingrain premise into you, so I won't talk about the times you break your premise. That's like tier 2. That's the next layer when you can break your premise. If you talk about how I went to university, I had, you go 100 level courses, 200 level courses, 300, 400, and then you should be graduated, right? So like, you don't learn to break your premise until 300 level courses, because it's really hard to break your premise in a way that people reading your story or reading a rule will be like, it breaks the premise, because remember, people pick up on these patterns subconsciously. For 200,000 years, we've been telling people stories and writing people pictures and interpreting language in this manner. Humans are very perceptive when it comes to that. They might not have the language to say, this breaks the premise and it sucks now. That's why I don't like the story. Or it doesn't do a good job of proving its premise. That's another reason why you would dislike a story without even realizing it. It doesn't do a good job of proving its premise. It doesn't do a really good job of, executing its first principles. It knows what it is the whole time. It just doesn't do it well. It doesn't get there big enough. It doesn't get there resoundingly enough, right? So it's a really, really difficult task to break your premise, but have a reader not feel that friction in the bad way and go, that was awesome. Sometimes you can. Well, that's for later. Yeah, it is a solo rant tonight. Guest had family stuff, so I had to reconfigure the format and approach it from something a little bit more my style. We're also doing a call-in show, so I'd like to remind everyone you can join the Chat Gang Discord and hop into the rogue encampment. Treat that like a little bit of a green room, and throughout the show, I can pull callers down, and like a radio call-in show, you can ask me questions about anything Age of Sigmar related, nerd related, or really anything. Honestly, I'm an open book. So, So premise. This is the most important thing to hammer into people, I think, when it talks about what is good design. Again, I don't know how Haywo approached his design show different than I do. Vince probably approached his different than I do. For me, I'm all about the premise. I think that if you have those strong first principles, you have a strong premise, you can do a lot of good writing. It all starts from there. It's foundational. It is ground up. I taught you how to get down to identifying first principles, and now we're going to kind of work into my sort of 7 deadly sins, as it were. So, any callers on deck? No callers on deck. All right, no one in the screener here. No one on the teleprompter. Cheers, chat gang. So, I have, as many of you know, I've been around nerd stuff virtually my entire life. I had a Nintendo NES. My uncle had a Commodore 64 and an Atari 2600. I grew up around console gaming. When I was in about the 4th grade. Now, in the 2nd grade, I read The Hobbit, did a book report on that. That got me. I was at an advanced reader level, so I immediately jumped to reading Lord of the Rings and so on and so forth. And by the 5th grade, I was reading Stephen King because Goosebumps and Animorphs weren't quite doing it for me anymore. So I missed out on Harry Potter because by the time Harry Potter was catching on, I'd already read past that. I had guilty pleasures of growing up of reading Dragonlance, Dristu Orden, and Star Wars Expanded Universe. So I'd be reading heady, lofty stuff because I was very arrogant about my reading level. So you'd see me reading Kurt Vonnegut or Anthony Burgess, or you'd see me reading like headier fiction, but then secretly at home, all I'm doing before I go to bed is just burning through like a Star Wars book or something. Um, so later on in life, yeah, Dragonlance is the shit. Team Raistlin, all the way. Um, uh, the point is, so around fourth grade, I went over to my friend's house. His older brother ran us in a game of Dungeons and Dragons. It would have been AD&D about this time, possibly truly second ed, though I don't remember. I played an elf who had a pair of throwing daggers that returned when I threw them. That was the character. I believe it was class elf, because in those days, elf was a class, as was dwarf. So I was an elf who threw daggers that returned to him. They were silver. And everything that I had loved kind of came together. My enjoyment of the Zelda game on my Nintendo, my love of Dragonlance and Drizzt and stuff like that, and it was like playing a video game and telling a story all at the same time. The first thing I ever said I wanted to be, when people are like, what do you want to be when you grow up, and they ask you that question, the very first thing I ever said I wanted to be was a writer and an illustrator of my own books. As I got older, the illustrator part dropped off because I was forced to specialize, as one's forced to do when you go off to college. But that was the first thing I ever wanted to be. So, I was. You add in like the Ninja Turtles and some Roald Dahl and Phantom Tollbooth and stuff like that. Like, I was primed to be a Omni-nerd. So when I played Dungeons and Dragons that first time, I was like, this is basically the coolest thing ever. Fast forward a few years, I moved away from that friend. I start telling like little Dungeons and Dragon-esque stories in my backyard with my friends, where like instead of, because we didn't have dice to roll, I would be like, well, what do you do? And then they would tell me what they did, and I would tell them whether it worked or not. And really like sort of narrating a game. This is why if you watch the Best Damn Soulbound show, the way I GM now is still very much steeped in those days in the backyard with my friends. Like, it's very much still that style. Oh, what do you do? Okay, yeah, and then like rolling with it, right? Basically improv, but I didn't know at the time. I didn't. Theater came later on. So when I get to middle school, I meet my friend Sam. Sam was just on the Sunday show with me and Joe, and he's a little quiet on the internet, but in person, if you're familiar with like great conversation, he's my oldest friend in the world. In sixth grade, I meet him. End up heading over to his house. He's got the TMNT RPG by Palladium Books on his shelf next to his High Elf army and some Legos and some GI Joes, like, and some comic books. And I make my first TMNT RPG character. He's like, "Oh yeah, this is like Dungeons and Dragons, but different, right?" And so I was obsessed with Palladium. I immediately started writing my own RPG. In the seventh grade, I wrote a Final Fantasy inspired RPG. My grandma sent me a bunch of stuff from my past. I never found it. I do know that I made a custom race called Gato Men. I thought I was super clever making a cat race. I made chocobos. I thought it was really funny to design a special attack where you hit people in the nuts with a bow staff. So there was a literal nut shot special attack that had its own special rules. I liked the idea of limit breaks. Final Fantasy VII came out a little bit later, but Final Fantasy III at the time, really 6 was an obsession of mine. And I loved the special abilities of the characters, so I was really obsessed with writing special abilities into my RPG. That was my first taste of design. I have never stopped. So that's a little history on me. That's your sort of appeal to authority, right? Like, this is how I've never stopped designing games. I homebrew basically most of my encounters. I stopped using modules the minute I stopped with I was living Greyhawk. RPGA certified Living Greyhawk GM DM for a long time. Used to go to Gen Cons and run modules for people. I don't like modules. I feel too confined with them. So I have a very, very laissez-faire style when it comes to rules, and I need to outline that too. I'm again very much on the designer side of things, the creative side of things. I do like rules. I love rules language. The easiest way to write a rule in Dungeons and Dragons is literally to just copy and paste a rule that exists, switch the cosmetics and the nouns, like what's it look like and what are you using? Boom. You have yourself a new rule. Real easy to do. But it gets harder, obviously, the more you try to design new stuff. So there's your pro tip. Yeah, so I'd say you like going off the rails, but didn't you run a train heist? So one of my homebrew games is a Riffs game. Yeah, that's sad. Um, I have a tip for you, Magos. But real quick, we'll finish this train story. Um, so the game I was the most notorious for running, I ran this 3 Gen Cons in a row to get my free. So when you're poor, you got to innovate, right? How do I get to Gen Con for free? When I first started out, Gen Con was in Milwaukee, so it wasn't that far for me. I lived in Green Bay, and so I drive down to Milwaukee at the time. Uh, so if you run games, you could get in for free. And so I would run games, and the game I most notoriously ran was a train heist in Riffs. So using the Riffs rules, I homebrewed a ley line train that traveled along the ley lines. Screw you, Eberron, I did it first. Um, um, so there was so it ran along ley lines, and it was a train heist. I had pre-gen characters because it's easier to do that. I had like 20 pre-gen characters with multiple copies. I'd throw them in the center of the table when you showed up. I walked around the room like it was theater and round with my GM screen like off to the side, where I would like go and roll dice behind that, and I would like stand and stuff like that, and then sit down at the table and like engage. You walk around the room initially, like get people into it and stuff like that, and then sit down at the table, and then like now everyone's engrossed. So I had a cast of characters, like 20 characters that could be on the train. I had all my NPCs that could be on the train, and like you could be a bandit there to rob the train. You could be like a marshal there to catch someone who's trying to rob. You could be a marshal there who's like transporting a bounty head, with the train. You could be like just random like adventurer passengers, like a whole deep cast of characters. I ran that game probably a dozen times, and it never once had the same outcome. Not once. By the way, the cargo of the train was a pre-Rifts, so if you're not familiar with Rifts is a post-apocalyptic Earth setting. It is the most gestalt game on the planet where like just all the craziest stuff works, right? All like there's magic, and you can be a cyber knight, which is a cybernetic soldier. You could be a boar. You could be a genetic super soldier. You could you could be a normal ass person. Like it's crazy. It's one of the most. I mean, it is not a coincidence that my favorite game, my favorite RPG is Rifts by Palladium Books, and that the games I run tend to go crazy and have a bunch of stuff no matter what system I'm in. It is not a coincidence. All right, I love that game setting. The rules are terrible, but again, I design my own rules. So if I don't like your rules, I just write my own. Um, but yeah, I see that. I see the waiting room. Uh, so like I ran that same adventure, just one notebook, not very thick. All of the possible outcomes. This is when I still wrote possible outcomes in a book. I don't do that shit anymore because I always look to my premise. I don't write down the like possible outcomes. If the party does this, then this happens anymore, because I just write down my premise. What's my premise for the scene? What's my premise for the adventure? What's my premise for the campaign? And I find a way to always serve that premise, always tie it back up. But back then I used to write, if they do this, then that happens. Um, I used to actually do that. The game never ended the same way. It ran about a dozen times over 3 years. Um, Never ended the same way. Always different. Something I noticed is the players are always different. They always find different ways to take things off the rails. It's perhaps the most perfect metaphor. I've had adventures where they crash the train, and a elemental demon that is powering the train breaks out, and then everybody's got to fight it. I've had it where they've successfully boosted the thing that was on the train that you're supposed to heist. I've had it where they boosted it, but then they didn't bring it back to the guy. I've had it where they failed to boost it, die in the process. I've had it where they've burned the thing because they're like, this, no one should have whatever artifact this is. I've had it where they have just thrown a party on the train. They just threw a party. I've had it where a whodunit mystery, a murder mystery broke out. That's 7 different outcomes of the same adventure written the exact same way in a notebook. Oh yeah, just turned into a fucking party. They're drinking, describing their drinks and stuff like that. I don't want to go on too much of a sidebar. But it's still one of the most iconic. One of my favorite moments as a GM was that one little thing. Oh yeah, there was just a murder most foul. I think the bartender got killed or something like that in one of the adventures. And they're like, okay, who did it? And they're like, one of the guys was so you have a dog boy. They're called dog boys, which are genetically engineered dogs that get bipedal and stuff in a book called Rift's Lone Star, or in the Lone Star complex. So there's also bear boys. One of them was a bear boy. And usually the bear boys are the enforcers, but they have latent psychic abilities. And so they could be investigators because they have psychic tracking and stuff like that. It's not as good as dog boys, but they had it. And so the person was like, I'm going to play the bear. I'm going to play the bear. Of course they want to play the gigantic bear, right? Because there's a little bit of a coalition circus on board the train. It was a metaphoric circus. It wasn't literally a circus, but I took a circus premise and said, well, what if it's, the future Nazi bad guys of the setting with their menagerie. And so that was on the train, and you could play them. And so one person was playing the bear, and he basically started to Sherlock Holmes it instead of trying to murder everybody. So if you could imagine the kind of Timmy player who comes in that just wants to play the huge genetically engineered bear to smash everything, and then a murder happens, and they suddenly get into it and are like, I'm gonna solve the mystery. If you could imagine that player just in that moment, yeah, it was like that. Get whatever mental image you have of the type of person who shows up, hasn't showered in 2 days of Gen Con, the most stereotypical nerd you can get in your mind right now. And then imagine them sitting down, and you're like, this person is going to play the gigantic bear thing and be a little bit of that guy. And then they start talking about smoking a corncob pipe, and one of the haughty people dies. One of the people on the train has a fancy hat, and the bear's like, I take the hat from them. Or do I have to roll an intimidate? I'm like, you're a 10-foot tall bear. You take the hat. He's like, good. I'm gonna take his pipe too and start smoking it. I think that this person killed the butler. And a whole murder mystery. Amazing. I can't. Anyway. Now we've gotten off the tracks. I'm gonna go check in the person. Would you say Rifts is mythic, science, fantasy? Yes, I would. It's over the top. You can actually play some really hard-boiled, mundane ones, too. And, Magos, I said I would give you tips on your module problem, because your parties never last more than a half a dozen sessions. Embrace the extended one-shot, my friend. If you are worried about not running long-term campaigns and, leaving a bunch of stories untold, start running miniature arcs. Just 3-session... to tell sort of stories. go switch to that. Like, you'd be surprised. A really good way of thinking about it is think about a movie premise. Think about it in 3 acts. 1, 2, 3. That's 3 adventures. And the first act, you got to have your hook, second line, final act, sinker, right? Hook, line, sinker, 1, 2, 3, and run little three like 8-hour sessions, and just do those, and you'll get a lot of stories told. When I didn't have a consistent group, I moved around a lot. I switched to telling a lot of like one. I like to do like sort of like D20 modern, like schlocky horror one shots. So I had one where a comet literally passed over the sky and zombies happened in the town, and the party like escaped. It was called Die in Theater instead of Drive-in Theater. The party escaped this like 1980s like 1980s 1970s like throwback drive-in theater in like I think it was like supposed to be it took place in the early 90s or the late 80s. So they escaped this like drive-in theater as all these zombies burst out, and then at some point like a little dragon flies overhead, and they're like, "What the fuck is going on?" And the whole plot was like that. It was in the 80s that the American government made a what they called a reality flux engine. And the reality flux engine was taking all the like 80s movie tropes and making them real because they were developing this weapon to like attack the Soviets. And so just this like schlocky, bad on purpose kind of plot. Everyone loved it. Just 3 quick hitters, three quick sessions. Have the party level like with their level ups ready to go between sessions. Like literally be like, you're gonna level at this is why milestone leveling is great. You're gonna level at the end of this session. I had it to where I ran one like 10-hour adventure, and I'm gonna have intermission, and I said you guys are gonna level up 4 times, possibly 5 if you do something bonus awesome in the story. So have 5 levels of progression ready to go for your character, and when they hit that first story moment where I'm like, okay, you level up, they just grab the next character sheet, or honestly just open it up because it's just a PDF fillable file everyone's using these days. Just opened up the next sheet, kept going. Never had a break in the story, never had any downtime. Like, it's so I say switch to extended one shots. Extended one shots are your best friend. I haven't listened to the Adventure Zone. Rocco, your boy, dropping 1,000 RDP to remind everyone, chat gang ain't nothing to mess with, and Snitbag coming in with a 1-2 punch. Chat gang ain't nothing to mess with. And I'm going to go ahead and take a caller real quick before we switch gears to, before we kind of continue on with the 7 deadly design sins. Hello, caller. You're live with Mr. Mephisto on RantCast. Where are you calling from, and what's your question? Come on, Rocco. You got to be ready, man. You got to be ready.
Yeah, okay. So tell me why. I have a question. Why do you think Staliarch Lords are going to be the next big OBR push after this Broken Realms book?
Why do I think they are?
Of course, yeah. They're going to be the new hot thing with this battalion.
No.
Oh, fine.
The battalion is, the battalion isn't, the battalion's a little unfortunate. So first of all, they're doubling up with an existing battalion, which with the Cavalos Lance, right? And you can, they're functionally very similar without like doing much else. I mean, it's not really changing the gameplay of Staliarch Lords, and it's not really refining it in a way that makes it dominant. The best.
Well, I have a question.
Yeah.
If it's a way to get back your RDP as you spend it, wouldn't that make like the Nagashon Staliarch Lords, where you're only getting like 3 or 4 RDP per turn, wouldn't that be a bit more viable?
I mean, it makes a not the best thing more like viable, but you're not talking about taking something that's already A tier and like giving it the juice, you know?
No problem.
I think Staliarch Lords already is a way to play the army because you need the mobility, but the thing that like, it's not like the Cavalos Death Riders are actually the true backbone of Staliarch Lords. The thing that Staliarch Lords is, like, it's giving run and charge to your Mortek Guard. That's where you get a lot of juice. The retreat and charge is pretty good, but you can just take a Kavalos Lance and do half the thing they do anyway, right? So
Yeah.
it's
Fair enough.
If Kavalos Lance didn't exist, I'd like it a lot better. The Kavalos Lance battalion, because I can take that battalion and I can go play Mortis Praetorians with a Kavalos Lance, do part of what I wanted with my Staliarch Lords anyway, and then bring the juice with a pair of catapults and Catacross.
All right.
Or, leave the catapults at home and just really, really beef up on other stuff.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
So that's my initial read, but that's without like a full read. I've only seen a couple teasers and haven't fully internalized it yet to really truly process. I could change my opinion as I mull it over longer, but at first blush, I'm not a buyer. This doesn't make me think Staliarch Lords is the next hotness. Any more than what it's already doing is like viable enough, right?
Yeah. Really, I'm more excited about the battalion box of buying all the riders and the liege.
Yeah, see that I already bought.
Like, let's say hypothetically, I still have that Nagash in the box for Rocco, your girl there, and if she wanted to go and drop the Night Haunt for some Bone Reaper, in my mind, I'm like, all right, we got Nagash, we get that box, we get a Bone Shaper, and we get 20 more Tech Guard, and then it's just get some endless spells, and then boom, that's a whole army.
Yeah, I mean it's a good value army. It's a good quick sort of a quick hitter army. Nagash and like 20 ponies is a pretty cool list too. Like Staliarch Lords and Nagash is really the only thing that's doing anything with. I'm sorry, this is RantCast with Nagash. It's like the only thing doing anything with Nagash, and you can spell it Neigh for when you're running it as Staliarch Lords. I mean, run and charge, and retreat and retreat on Nagash, because keep in mind he's mounted technically. The ghosts count as mounts, so he gets the retreat and charge, which is like the good stuff, and he flies. You add in the RDP for a plus 3-inch movement. You have a 12-inch. Like retreat and charge flying unit that can fly over people and start to do damage. It makes Nagash like pretty cool. It helps you get the value out of him, because when you have 900 points into a single model, you absolutely need to affect the table. So it's not. Yeah. It's a really good way to try to maximize Nagash in a army that really wants to make him viable. It really wants to. But you're always going to have the downside of you've got a single model that's half your points in an already elite army. If you're not able to take people to the bone zone and blend them immediately, you're gonna have trouble covering enough table.
Oh yeah, you need those 8 arcane bolts to go off. And
right.
Just nuke.
Right. You need those D3s to get through. And he becomes a minigun. He becomes your catapult, because you're just D3ing every like force multiplier hero out there. You have some utility with him in that he's going to like Dikembe Motumbo most spells in the meta. Most spellcasters aren't going to be able to cast through Nagash. You're going to get like, he even has a good chance if you're using Techless and you're going to go the 4-spell route, you only need to roll 8s to unbind him. You're going to unbind a spell or two. Like if Techless is only on the 4-spell plan, right? So you're going to force him to try to go into like 2 spells or 1 spell, and like for just having Nagash, you have to make a worse decision. Yeah, I'll take that. The problem is Nagash got a little squishier. He doesn't have redundant saves anymore, so he's a lot easier to kill. You're on that 3-up. A 3-up save evaporates pretty quickly. And one of your Gatling gun spells has to go to the RDP spell to get a D3 RDP.
Yep.
So
and section of Nagash too. Don't
right. Yeah. Yep. So you need that 5-up. You need that 5-up teleporting.
Really, it's just the 5-up after save part.
I love the teleport. I love the teleport. It's when Death gets teleports, it's beautiful. This is why I'm advocating so strongly for vampires to have like a mist form teleport style thing. Give me teleport on death. I will make my opponents cry.
Would make sense too.
I'm sorry, what was that?
It would make sense too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and also I'm seeing these teasers here for this new main city of mine, Settlers Gain. Calling it now. I'm known for living city, but boy, I'm gonna gain a bunch. I'm just gonna go straight gains here.
Mm-hmm.
We're gonna be stuck more with these gains because I'm liking it.
The
I'm
Hishian
liking
city?
all these pluses. Yeah, the Hishian city. All these pluses to cast. All of a sudden, you're you know, it's like the Howlheart city when you're getting all these extra pluses to cast without having to take the mortal wounds.
Mm-hmm.
It's not as impressive, but still rocking that +2 to your stuff. It's nice.
Yeah, it's not bad. It's 2/3 of the way to Nagash's bonus, and I have to pay 900 points for him.
Yep, and also the aura of a 5-up after save from the Luminarch instead of the normal 6-up.
Well, not to mention the potential of going the 1 and 4 thing. I think there's going to be some low key. There's going to be some low key heat when you can go, like you're going to take two units of wardens or whatever, and you're going to support them with Phoenix Guard. That's a paddling. And now you have the complements of, yeah. I mean you could take yeah, or even if you go with the standard build of like Iron Drakes, and now you're casting that portal without having to like stab your own dudes at a +2. Like, I'll take that too. It's got a lot of potential. Cities continues to be this just like unstoppable toolbox of infinite possibilities.
The problem is you need to make sure you own enough to flex to each city.
Right.
That's how they.
Right. Like it's a brilliant capitalist move. Do you have any final questions, caller, before I get you off the air here?
No, I'm feeling pretty good. You know, long time listener, 4th time caller.
Right.
But, nice. This is nice.
Oh,
also, how do I sound? Am I loud enough?
I think you're a little bit louder. I immediately cranked you to 200% when you came in the call.
Good man.
Yeah.
Also, I'm on my phone to be like an actual call-in for the call-in show.
Oh, the verisimilitude. Nice.
Here for you.
All right. Well, I'll catch you around, man.
Yep.
Hoping to hear a click sound. Not quite. I mean, I said before, it's called Broken Realms Techless. I expect Techless to make out in a book with his name in the title. The Ossiarch Bone Reaper stuff, it's fine. I think the value of buying the box is better than what you're doing there. And Mogwai Man, I think it was, in the end you'll come back to Mortek Guard. And I think that's kind of like you want to spam ponies, but it's like with such a low footprint, you always end up just running some more Mortek Guard. But 20 Mortek Guard with a Bone Shaper supporting them is about as good as 40, depending on how much damage your opponent can put out. And then you can take some ponies to support them and get some mobility. It's not bad. It's close to one of the lists I run. So yeah. So it's just the nature of the army makes it difficult to like really max out on vanity picks, unfortunately. All right. So I mentioned sort of my origins of game design and really being with RPGs in a tabletop sense, and that I continued to like sort of refine and develop writing my own rules in a homebrew setting and here, and then doing homebrew system there, and basically since my 20s, so for the last 16 years, I haven't really run a game that's directly out of a book. I'll use the skeleton of their systems if I like the system or the setting, and then from there I'm usually just like redesigning everything. Soulbound, I'm running it a little bit more out of the book, but that's because Cubicle 7, I play tested for them, and so I helped that my name is in that book. And I'm kind of showcasing Soulbound with the Best Damn Soulbound show. So I want as more of a showcase of, hey, this is the RPG than like, hey, this is my random Mephisto craziness. You get plenty of that anyway. Um, so mention all that. Um, and parallel to that, I've always been a writer. I actually went to college for writing, and this is where all this my views on premise. Just to reset that. But I did something with it about 4 years ago now. Um, so I had just published a couple of my anthology stories. Uh, I would do occasional Twitch streams and talk about writing, or play video games. And if you're around me long enough, you're going to hear me talk about writing. I had a regular streamer or a regular uh, guest that would come into the chat and talk to me. Not in a podcast sense, just someone who would talk to me. And they had a small video game company that kind of grew through doing Reddit game jams. So they would make like a quick mobile game, flip a profit, and so on and so forth. But the would have been the producer wanted to take the next step and release something of substance. He had a roadmap for the design. He, we want to. Our target date was a GamesCon or DevCon in November of that year. We had basically December, January, and then all the way to November. He's done games jams. Again, they crank out a game a month, make a card game, sell the card game on for free plus some ads, and they turn a profit, right? So small company, nothing bad to say about him, the person, and what he was doing. But to take the next step, he needed a writer. And quite honestly, I was the best writer he knew of that was cheap. And that's what it ultimately comes down to for this opportunity. A lot of my pay was on the back end, but I had a lot of creative control. I got a small advance and go, right? So I wrote the story for the game, and then I moved into some of the development stuff because I was writing an RPG, really short, kind of decent RPG. I'm not sure how many specifics I'm allowed to talk about, so I'm going to avoid specifics. So we wrote and we were working on this game together. We'd have conference calls literally every Sunday, touch base with what I'd worked on. He'd put it into his design document, and we were going. So we were working kind of in tandem with this. We had a pixel artist, a concept artist, a programmer, and I think one other sort of person. So a very small team, the definition of an indie team, right, for an indie game. Ambitious project, but with pixel art. I mean, it's the sort of thing you can make an RPG maker, right? So ambitious, but not out of the scope of things. And we had a decent plan. Have a trailer and a functional demo for DevCon. Then our pixel artist hit some emotional problems. When the pixel artist hit some emotional, like real life personal problems, the programmer was like, I want to go back to school and change. I don't want to keep programming like game jams my whole life. I want to focus on like IT or something like that. And so like the whole project fell apart, like literally right at the finish line. I think it was October. It was in October. We were ready to get basically get our video together for the DevCon and try to do a Kickstarter after that, right? And it just fell apart. But Vince has a success story of trying to make a game. He's got an RPG and so on and so forth. I have a failure story about the time I tried really hard and I threw everything. I am already an insomniac. I was working 60-hour work weeks at my job, and I would come home and I would write for another 30 hours. It was taxing. I basically didn't have time to do anything. I was an utter ghost from my family that whole summer. They never saw me. They never talked to me. And when it collapsed, in a weird way, the following year I actually go on to make RantCast. Because I had a mental breakdown after that. It's not uncommon for me to have miniature mental breakdowns every winter, just like clockwork. But this one was really bad. I've talked about it before. There's a point in time where I had my truck parked up on a cliff overlooking Lake Michigan, thinking about like how I can make it look like an accident. So this is really, it was that bad to get that close. I was so close to, for me, attaining a dream I've always had. Told you about RPGs. I've told you about how video games were that like sort of that first hit for me. That was like all for me. It felt like all the stars were coming together. I was going to have my writer's credit on a game, and even if it didn't sell, the producer's the one who's out. They're the one having to do all the money and all the hard stuff. I'm like, I get my writer credit. I don't. I get my writer's credit. I get to go on and say I wrote this RPG when I go and look for a different job, and then I don't have to paint dirt for a living anymore. That was it, right? Like I was that close to making it. In my mind, obviously, it's never that simple. And yeah, so I got a crash course in game design from the producer, who had detained or who had gone to Rochester, New York, University, Rochester, New York, which is one of the better schools for game design in America. I think you hear about Full Sail. They're probably just really good at advertising. Actually, UW Stout, which is my rival school. So when in doubt, or when in doubt, go to Stout. If you can't go there, go to Eau Claire. I went to Eau Claire, which is actually funny because Eau Claire is the one with like, better test scores and stuff. So get fucked, Stout. But no, Stout does have a really good video game developer school, and in England, we've actually had I've mentioned Cubicle 7 and Team DigiSprite a couple times now tonight. I've had both Emmett Byrne and Elaine Lithgow on this show, and amusingly enough, so they, Emmett, the producer on Soulbound, and Elaine has her own game company with her partner and one of their friends called Team DigiSprite, and she wrote Crash and Burn, the sort of first adventure for Soulbound, and she's she's now a full-time writer for Cubicle 7, and she now writes she's written bestiary entries and other modules and so on and so forth. So that's what she does now. And it's funny because both her and Emmett, watch those episodes, by the way. Both of them are really, really great. I normally don't like self-advertise my own show, but go back and watch, look for the RantCast with Emmett and the RantCast with Elaine. But to summarize it, basically they're both in Dundee, Scotland, which has Aberdeen University, which is one of the sort of premier video game development schools. So they actually both had like a video game development sort of ambition or whatever, and they ended up in board games. So when I talk about board game development and RPG development and video game development, there is a lot of shared language and a lot of shared design principles. Because at the end of the day, I mean, it's writing. It's foundational. We talked about premise. We talked about first principles. Like this is it's philosophical. It is core. When I say philosophy, I don't mean in the dismissive it's philosophy. I mean the origins of science philosophy. It's foundational. So a lot of the stuff I learned is what I'm sharing, and it'll help you, I think, get a different perspective. So without further ado, the 7 deadly sins of game design. So the first one. So there's actually a YouTuber who's used these before as well. They're pretty. There's a lot, like I said, there's a lot of overlap in these gaming communities. So the first one is that you have the first sin. It's when we talk about bad design or a bad rule. This is the very, very first one that comes to mind is zero control over the win stroke or loss condition. Okay? Or, I'm sorry, win stroke or loss status. Okay? So this is the one that I think people most often pick out on their own. This is the feeling like you don't really have meaningful input in what happens in the game. So like, it just, my decision didn't matter. I had no control over it, right? Like that's, when we talk about like agency in the game, this is usually what people are picking up on. This sin right here. The feeling that you had no control over whether you won or lost. Rules on a micro scale can offend this, right? You can look at the totality of a game. You know, I often see people argue that the priority roll is this one. That they feel like you don't have, like, oh, and then he won priority and then he won, right? Like, priority roll takes away the ability to win. This is where what I told you at the very, very beginning of the evening about first principles, about Cartesian doubt, right? Boiling it down. This is where we're first going to check. Whenever we assess a mechanic to see if it's truly offending one of these, we have to break it down to those first principles to make sure. So, in the case of the priority roll, did you truly have no control? Was that the loss of the win stroke and or loss status? Was that the true moment where you didn't have control over it? And usually, if you doubt yourself back, you can see that you could have done things going into a potential double turn or deployment or whatever. You can usually analyze it and be like, yeah. Now, a better example of this would be probably something closer to Slaanesh at the epitome of when Slaanesh was just epitome of Slaanesh. At the epitome of that book. Right, that sort of last iteration before like the 6 nerfs, the appropriate 6 nerfs in a new battle tome, right? At the epitome of that army would essentially line up on the table, charge you, say you don't get to activate your units until the end of combat, and now I'm going to go 3 times and kill everything on the table. This is getting very close to the zero control over win stroke / loss status, because the only part you really got to control in that exchange was your deployment. And then from there, your shit was dead. And so that one usually trips this one here. Now, the rebut was, we'll just shoot the heroes and so on and so forth, but like, it was in such a state, it was so pushed. Yeah, deployment and army construction are really the only places you had control over that win stroke or loss status, right? Deployment and army construction. Now, I posit that in our Cartesian doubt exercises, we need to bring things back until we can't make any more decisions, right? Like, that's the whole thing when we get to that we doubt our way all the way down. Now, I am a person who says gameplay begins at deployment and construction, because I look at the game a little bit differently. I think the average player thinks gameplay begins at dice. Or I'd say most people think gameplay begins at deployment. That's when you're physically playing the game, right? You've actually engaged with the game. So again, this is that first sin. The loss, the feel like you have no control over that. That's when we look at something as bad design, right? That's when we need to go back to our first principles. We need to reassess our premise. Okay? So this here, that zero control. And again, colloquially, I think you hear people talk about agency. To feel like I want my decisions to matter, right? That's that. That's what we're talking about. The second one is, so this one's a lot of fun. Unclear sensory feedback. This is the what the fuck is going on sort of status of a game or a rule. Now, I'm trying to think of a good example of a rule that's just unclear sensory feedback, where you're like reading it and you're rereading it and you're like, what the fuck is going on? If you say what the fuck is going on while you're reading a rule, chances are you're in the unclear sensory feedback. We say sensory because rules often have a tactile element to them, right? I roll a die. I check the number. I have to check a fucking chart. what the fuck is going on? Like the sensory, the kinesthetics of playing the game, checking the rules. Usually there's a breakdown somewhere between that interaction. You read the rule, you're getting a little confused. You've reread the rule. You're like, okay, I only have okay reading comprehension, but I've read this thing 4 times now, and the more I read it, the more confusing it gets. Where this really begins to, where this sin really begins to happen, though, is when you translate it over to now you have to do that thing with it. That's why we say sensory. It's not just unclear feedback. It's unclear in a sense level. Like it goes into the actual play of the game. The rule is so badly written that, like, when you go to actually do the thing, you're like, what the hell is going on? I'm trying to think of a good example of this one. The closest thing I can think of right now is the LRL knockback ability. KO, fly high, disengage. Perfect example. Perfect example. It's just like you read it, you reread it, then you get to the table and you're just like, it starts to, like, people have, like, biases on how games should work. Again, we're very intuitive with games and stories. We have a long history of games and stories as a culture, as a human species. You may not be able to put this stuff to words. That's why we're doing this. But, like, you feel it. And again, the first signifier is if your brain reads something and you reread it and you reread it, and we've done our Cartesian doubt, we've done our first principles investigation, right? And you still are just like, what the fuck is going on? And then you go to, like, put it in the gameplay and it doesn't get any clearer. You have a sin number 2. Now, this is where I want to say some mechanics can offend a little bit. Like who doesn't mind a little gambling every now and then? Which is, greed is technically a sin. It doesn't mean you go straight to hell. You got to repent a little bit. You got to balance it out, do some good. We can have rules that violate one of these. But, like, it's not an egregious version of it. And it makes up for it in some other way. I haven't talked about breaking the rules yet. So ignore that I've said you can break these rules. But you have to have a really, 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 really good excuse to break the rules. So we're going to just ignore what I just said there. For now, you can't break the rules. For now, we can't break the rules on how we write rules. When we get to the 300 level course, we'll talk about when you can break the rules. And it almost always is the rule of cool, by the way. In so many words. So the next one, the next 2 are unless you're LRL, right? Then they just went through and they're like, what can we break every rule in the book, fundamentally, or Tzeentch? Well, this is why I hate Destiny dice. I hate Destiny dice because 0 control, right? They just make the charge. They just cast the spell. Nothing I did, and nothing they did, apart from use the rule, stop that. Like that bothers me at its inception. And then you go on, and as you go down, like, they skip over unclear sensory feedback because Destiny dice, apart from some of the, like, stuff you're doing with when you're building up your pool, they're not really unclear. They're pretty explicit. But then they go on to break rules 3 and 4. So 3 and 4, they're 2 different rules, but I'm going to mention them at the same time. So the first one is complete lack of meaningful challenge. Too easy, right? The rule makes something too easy. The flip side, then, is impossibility of success. It's way too hard, right? So either of these can make for bad rules. And this is, again, why I hate fucking Destiny dice. It just goes, it breaks most of these sins. So these ones are I think these are at their face value pretty explanatory. So your complete lack of meaningful challenge. This is where, like, that time I played my Depraved Drove, that first time I played Depraved Drove, and I was just like, I didn't even earn that win. Like, I didn't even feel like, you hear it expressed as, like, the army plays itself. which is often a misnomer. Again, Cartesian doubt. We always start from a sense of doubt. We have to strip down our biases first. That's super important in analyzing rules. Did you really does it really play itself, right? Sybarites actually some of the practical setups in Slaanesh don't actually violate this rules like the internet makes it think. It's actually kind of hard to line up the Venn diagrams to get all their auras to work. If anything, you start to go to the other side where it's too finicky and granular, and fuck that. That's not good either. So when you play an army and you walk away and you're like, the rule just that rule just trivialized the thing, right? You're encroaching on third, and then the flip of that is 4 is where something just makes it an impossible scenario, right? So that's 3 and 4. 3 and 4 are pretty self-explanatory. I don't think I need to spend too much time on those. Well, the fact that they can replenish their destiny dice is where I think it starts to get really out of hand. Because it's random enough. Remember, randomness can be randomness is a really good lever for some mechanics. You're allowed to be a little overpowered if you're random. Right? Because it's random. You're allowed to be a little overpowered if it's random. And so but the fact that destiny dice aren't really random, that's the problem with them. I mean, that's the thing that for me just makes it kind of past the that's where it goes into the irredeemable land. As before, I'm just I'm annoyed that you don't have to roll dice. I mean, talking about destiny dice, one of the reasons people don't like the LRL Sword Lords right now is because one of their things says don't roll dice. It's the number one complaint I saw before I even saw the rules written down. Before I even saw it, I saw people complaining that they're not rolling dice to attack. It feels in some ways it violates an initial premise of the game. You roll dice for your attacks, right? Everyone thinks that. Now, you could mitigate that. What if it's a hero that doesn't roll dice for this one attack? Well, that feels a little bit better than a whole unit, right? There are ways, again, we can break rules if we have good excuses. A core unit breaking a rule, so fundamental to what we believe the game to be, that doesn't feel good. We kind of hate that. We may not even know why. Destiny dice feel the same way to me as that, not rolling the attack hit for the LRL Sword Lords feels for other people. Why aren't you rolling fucking dice? I have to roll dice. You're allowed to, not roll dice sometimes, if it's, a cool ability or, a really cool unit guy or something like that. I don't care that, once per game, you can get an autocast or an auto-unbind, right? That's, once per game. That's kind of exceptional. It's a resource at that point. I have to think about that. The fact that I can make it automatically happen, that I don't have to roll dice, is mitigated by the fact that I have to think about it, right? That feels a lot better. Not having to roll your charge rolls for Marauders. People hate that. People hate it. Not rolling dice is a third rail in Age of Sigmar design. It's a first principle. People hate it when you don't roll dice for stuff they think you have to roll dice for. It's one of the first things I'll see people complain about. A third rail, another way of putting it is it violates first principles, right? When we distill it all the way down, we're left with you should roll dice in a dice game, right? We doubted our way all the way down. You have to roll dice. We believe that is part of what makes this game this game. It's in our first principles, all the way at the bottom. How would I change Destiny dice? One way I would change them is you don't get to replenish them with spells and other mechanics. It's your 9 dice or your 9 dice or your 9 dice. Now it's random and then they get used up over the course of the game. Now it's a decision, right? You go back to an inversion of 0 control over win stroke loss status. Well, if you have control over it, right? That's when you're making it good. Well, I have control over the Destiny dice. I have more control, because I have to plan them out, and sometimes I don't even get all the dice. I think that's one way of fixing it. The other way I thought of it is it's rerolls. Instead of fixed numbers, it's rerolls. And you get to break the rerolling one time, one time rule with it once. So if you have the other way I think of it is that might be too much of a third rail is the breaking their rule of 1. But if it's going to be an infinite resource, then it's rerolls. Like, okay. Like, that feels like you can reroll any dice instead of set the dice. The problem with Destiny dice is when the army is bad, like, who cares about Destiny dice? But when the army is good, it takes something good and it can push it into absurd. Now I can guarantee my charges. Now I can guarantee my steroids. Now I can guarantee this, that, and the other thing. Now I can fuck around with my goddamn battle shocks. So those are like it makes it harder to balance the entire army with a Destiny dice mechanic as it is. So my two thoughts are either you cap it at 9, or if you don't cap it, then it's just Destiny die is a reroll that you just always have. Tournament rerolls are fun. Like, tournament reroll dice are hype as hell. You sit there, like, I have a special gold die, like, I set off to the side when I get my tournament reroll, I'm like, ooh, that's the tournament reroll die, baby. Once per game each, because I donated to charity, or I bought the TO a drink or whatever. I got my little stamp for my tournament reroll, baby. And I'm just like, oh, I'm going to use it. I'm going to use it. And then I roll it for the charge roll, right? And I roll the 1 anyway. Like, that's hype. That's engaging. That's fun. So rerolls can be cool. Like, there's a time aspect to it, right? Like, we want to play our game cleanly, and usually stuff that just bloats the amount of time is frowned upon a little bit. But if it's hype, then I'm like, okay, cool. So if you put the hype in and you take away the fact that it guarantees stuff, either or, and I would defer to a Tzeentch player and be like, which one of these two do you prefer as the nerf, right? Like, and I say with the caveat of I'm nerfing these because then I get to make your like sort of regular numbers, like the sort of like baseline of how good your army is. I can make that go a little bit higher now. Because now I don't have to like write everything scared of your fucking Destiny dice, taking something that's like kind of up to the line and then pushing it over the line. Now you can guarantee your charges with your pings. Get fucked. You can teleport in my face and guarantee the charge. We're 1, 2. We've got 2 sins right there. I hate it. So, Vortexes. How goes tonight? Was painting your Kron Dynasty a Cetra tribute. The Setrak Dynasty. We do not serve. Like, that's their prime directive. Yeah, awesome. Sounds cool. If I ever go back to go back to 40K, it's Necrons. Hell, I might just buy an entire. If I found $1,000 on the floor, I'd be like, okay. Well, I'd probably give it mostly to charity. But like, if they're like, you can't actually give this to charity, you have to buy something with it, then it would just like, I'll just buy a whole Necron army and just like have it and look at it and paint it and it looks sweet. Necrons are sweet. Well, see, that's why I like you randomly roll. Because Tzeentch also attempts to screw over Tzeentch. It should be random. It shouldn't be set. Like I mean, that's like Tzeentch's plans often screw over Tzeentch too. I feel like the more random it feels like a better, because that's going back to our premise, right? We're serving our premise. Tzeentch tends to be random. Tzeentch is like messing with Destiny can be good and it can be bad. That's where it being rerolls instead of setting the dice feels awesome. So like that's where our premise helps us write better rules, does it not? Look at that, like immediately, Mogwai man, like you get this. So, so 3 and 4, complete lack of meaningful challenge. It's too easy. And impossibility of success. It's too hard, right? So these are good, bad. These are sins. Which brings us to 5. Y'all are gonna hate this one. Single viable gameplay strategy. So this one. This one we're usually looking at an army level, right? Like the broadness of the game itself. It's going to be rare that a single rule does this in a way. Like, some rules turn on certain stuff. Eels, right? Eels, 100%. This is eels, right? This is why we don't like eels. Now, eels is a perfect example. This is why Blight King spam, right? I think you're oversimplifying how awesome a burn deck is. But there's a reason they haven't printed just Fireball again in how long. They already printed the best version of pay 1, do 3. Instantly. To the face, as we used to say. I'm sorry, I'm not analyzing MTG decks here. For that, you're going to have to go watch Haywo. Infect is actually getting into the zero control area, because like once you're infected, there's almost no ways to stop infect. Right? It's just gonna tick up until you're dead. It's a doom counter. People hate that. People hate infect. It also goes against the third rail of life as a resource, because they invented a different resource to kill you with. So like there's a reason infect is hated in the community, and it has to do with some of the stuff we've talked about tonight. You know, talking about our premise and our first principles, and then talking about our zero control, our some of the stuff. Like they hate it. The illusion that it's too easy, right? No, I understand. So single viable gameplay strategy. Now again, it's rare that a single rule. This is going to be probably usually more like a war scroll or allegiance abilities. Hagnar, right? Hagnar felt like it was offending people in that sense. Again, we're going to Cartesian doubt ourselves. Is that the only viable way, right? Like we're going to doubt our way down and ask ourselves this question. It's very important. We always keep that spicy when we're analyzing rules. We got to have that spicy, like, So Hagnar before was probably a lot more in line with this than it is now. Is this army Beast of Chaos? Beast of Chaos actually, when Beast of Chaos were winning, it was Beastman Mark won Masters with them. Zangor Enlightened on Disc. That was the only viable way to play that army. It was a badly designed book, right? Like that's bad design. We have we don't like that. So 5 single viable gameplay strategy. I wish I had a fancy acronym for that one. No, there's nothing. So that tends to be just kind of that's one of the sins. So 6. I should probably pair 7 and 2 and 6 from now on, because 6 is funny. So 6 is a total concept failure. This is the one. So before, unclear sensory feedback, once we got done reading the thing, we go, what the fuck is going on? Right? Like the sensory aspect of that's really what's important to that. That's why I hammered it home early. What the fuck is going on is what you think when, like, you're just like, huh? You're just, a state of confusion. Total concept failure is what the fuck were they thinking? It's not so much that you're confused as it doesn't hit the threshold. You look at the thing and you go, what the fuck were they thinking? Total concept failure. The closest one I can think to for this one is probably the Bad Moon. Right off the top of my head. Like, what the fuck were they thinking? The only allegiance ability I get is a fucking random ass thing that may or may not work and or may not stick around, and there's no way to physically represent it in the table. Like, I just like, oh, there's a moon somewhere here. Like, what the fuck were they thinking? Total concept failure. Now, that's probably not as total a concept failure, but it is a concept failure. The concept's cool. Bad Moon's cool. I like the idea of a cresting moon. Yeah, it's pretty sweet. I like the idea that you're summoning the Bad Moon. But what I would do with the rule like that, if I was given the Bad Moon as the producer of the game, or as the head editor, if someone handed me that off their desk, I would look at that and go, what the fuck were you thinking? Like, total concept failure. Yeah, not enough people are buying. Yeah, buy a helium balloon and float it over the table. This is there are times when you look at a rule, and again, we're gonna do our first principles check first, and then we're gonna look at this and go, yeah, I don't think that gets across what you thought it got across. What the fuck were you thinking? And so I use my little my swearing to distinguish this from unclear sensory feedback. Unclear sensory, again, it's more confusion based than a failure of concept. So that's sin number 6. And 7 is included from a technical writing standpoint. Okay? So this is a zero existence scenario. It doesn't exist. So this happens usually in flavor text or fluff, where they will write something that references something that doesn't fucking exist. I have no idea what keyword you're referencing, because that keyword isn't a thing. Like, it doesn't exist. This is a bad rule. This is badly written. It can go further to be like a page is missing in their like manuscript, right? So, but it's something, again, we got to be aware of when we're looking at good rules, bad rules, and how to write good rules and bad rules, and how to assess good rules and bad rules. In terms of how we're going to run into this in Age of Sigmar, usually it's referencing something that doesn't exist. Referencing a rule that doesn't exist. Referencing a rule that exists but doesn't work properly that way, or doesn't work that way, is usually this one as well. So like it references like deployments or usually this one almost always results in an FAQ, because they just the thing they've written doesn't exist, and now they have to go and write another rule. And what's really bad about this sin is that usually it results in you having to write more rules. The goal should never be, when you set out to write, this is a first principles thing just in general, like this is just a good ethos. We talked about premise a ton. I should have talked about word soup and I should have talked about like word soup. I didn't. Obviously, at the face value, when you're writing rules, you are trying to communicate to your players how they interact with the game. And in a sense, as a writer, you're teaching them how to interact with themselves. Yeah, that's a good one. Like, this is a zero existence scenario. Doesn't exist. Like why is this that way? Like, this rule doesn't need to exist. So the goal of rules is to kind of communicate how people should play your game. And in a sense, you are communicating your point of view as well. Every writer has a point of view. Every writer, even in rules, right? You're trying to communicate how you should interact with it. So this is going back to kind of like just in general writing rules and stuff. This you want rules when you're trying to communicate to people to be clear. You want people to be able to read your rules and go, okay, yeah, I get what you're saying. I mean, that's one of the most important things. Writing too many words is anathema to that. One of the first things I do when I write, like homebrew, especially for like an RPG, is the minute my sense trips if I wrote too long. I looked at it and I went, oh yeah, like it's technically correct, perfect grammar and syntax. I am so explicit in the situation I am defining that nobody could get this wrong. Guess what happens? Everyone gets it wrong, because every extra fucking sentence you add is another part of their brain goes, and okay, huh. But what if every time you write an extra sentence, someone's brain does that? Furthermore, people tend to skim rules. They always forget a sentence. They like to forget sentences that benefit them, you'll find, whether it's intentional or not. Or they like to forget sentences that stop the thing from being as good as they want it to be. And they omit the ones that like punish them, right? Like, so the more you write, the more you leave it open to sort of questioning it, even if you're as explicit and as just, it is the perfect word soup. It is salted adequately. You got a little color in there. Like, it is the perfect word soup. The broth is full body. I just wrote 3 paragraphs of the best fucking word soup ever. doesn't matter. You write too long, people are going to skim, they're going to check out, you're always going to leave avenues of interpretation. Because everyone's brain just goes, and? Like, their minds just start, like, engaging at different points of that body text. So, that's not in our 7. That might as well be our unofficial 8th one, is don't write word soup. Like, that might as well be the 8th one, is it's word soup. You wrote too much. Writers want to write, and oftentimes we've historically been paid by the word, which is a mistake. It's why Charles Dickens sucks. Get at me, my old English lit peers from UW Eau Claire. You won't. Yeah, Bastille on FAQ. Or you know where you're going. And so a lot of times, like when you write, like your brain, this is usually fixed by strong editing, but your brain will like already like have written a sentence for you, and you'll like skip it and write the next one. And since I'm taking this to an editor, they might not see that I skipped a sentence. They might not notice that. Because like I wrote such perfect word soup. It's delicious. And they read through it and they go, yep, A, B, C, D, yep. And they just like check it, boom, send it to the printer, right? And then like it gets to the printer and I'm just sitting back in my chair. I wrote the best word soup ever. And then I hear people on the internet are confused. I'm like, how are they confused? It's the Christopher Lloyd reaction gif from like One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, right? Like how the fuck are you confused? I wrote it perfect. And I pick it up and I read it and I reread it. And I read it once and I go, yeah. Because my brain already put back in the sentence I forgot. And then like I do a double check and I'm like, oh shit, I forgot a whole sentence. That changes everything now. like at a read, it holds up to syntax and grammar edit. Like it holds up to all those like stuff that the editor might be looking for. But it doesn't even meet my initial like attempt. That can be a zero existence scenario, right? I'm missing a sentence in my word soup. This is I like that might as well be our bonus sin is word soup. Don't do it. Like it just like again, I have like a spidey sense that trips when I've been doing it for too long. Like I'll look back at it and I'll read it and I'm like, if they and then they, while within, into the fire, like, disgusting. No, don't do it. Don't do it. Spare your players. Spare yourself. Spare your printer. So yeah, I mean those were my 7 deadly sins and a bonus sin, for you, with the 8th one, word soup. But that's just more of my particular like shake fist anger at it. Any questions? Anything you want to double back on? I tried to give examples for them as I went along. Colorado AOS, Greg helped me out there with some good examples. The goal, like I said, is to help people have language and a way to interact and have discussions with other people. Yeah, if you have to take a breath while reading it, it's too long. Well, keep in mind, reading is meant to be done aloud. For the most, like Socrates. We talked about Aristotle and Descartes. Let's talk about Socrates for a minute. Socrates said that the written word is destroying the oral tradition of storytelling. Socrates was anti-fiction writing. This is hilarious to me for multiple reasons. The first one is that people criticizing new art forms go as far back and are as esteemed as fucking Socrates. When comic books came out, when film came out, when video games came out and were trying to establish themselves as art. I don't know if anyone's really making the call that board games trying to establish themselves as an art form, right? Like every time the new art thing comes out, there's always some fucking old fuddy-duddy who's like, this is destroying art. It is as old as Socrates. I would imagine we don't have records of this, but there was a caveman, Ooga Booga or something like that. When when like someone painted the first picture on a cave was like, ooga booga, you're destroying the tradition of throwing feces. Like there was just some person like throwing feces in an art, and you've destroyed it. And look at what you've done. Think of the children. Fun little trivia about that. We have found out that dick jokes go as far back as caveman days. like, um, and and that like artists competing on the internet and trolling people goes all the way back to caveman days too, because there would be mini games where they would try to see who could draw a doodle the highest on the cave wall. It wasn't like, it was just to like one up each other and stuff like that. So measuring epeen via text and print and emojis, cavemans were doing it. So take some solace in knowing that as much as things change, some things stay the same, right? But yeah, art. Socrates criticized the written language, like criticized like writing stories down, because like the notion that like stories and language are living, and that what by like putting it down you somehow like galvanize it, and you lock it into place, and it kind of ruins that art, right? So yeah, I'm obviously team writing. Get fucked, Socrates. But um, only on RantCast. Get fucked, Socrates. Oh man. Yeah. So just to kind of recap, so I want people to have like a language, just something to be more aware of when you go out and you start to analyze rules. People are pretty intuitive. You usually pick up on when a rule's rubbing you the wrong way. And I want you to work through your Cartesian doubt, work towards your first principles, and strip that rule down. And then once you're down there, then I want you to consider our 7 deadly sins, and plus our bonus sin of fuck word soup. So I want you. That's the goal. That's it. Chat gang, I really don't have anything else. We only had one caller tonight, so I'm a little disappointed. But I mean, chat gang itself has been popping off, so that's changing the format too much. Oh, the joys of the internet. So, any final questions? Any digital soapbox moments from you, chat gang? Anything you'd like to get off your chest, or anything you want me to riff on and get off of my chest? I feel like we've had a pretty great show. There is a chat delay, so I'll let you catch up with my words. Oh, we've got a caller. Welcome, caller. This is AOS RantCast. You're live on the air.
Hi, is this the OnlyFans hotline for Mr. Mephisto?
I mean, it can be.
So I subscribed recently, and you promised me 7 photos of all positioning the 7 deadly sins. I'm wondering if that's is that coming to me via my app, or is that through the email?
You know what? I can do this for you. I can get these to you. I'm sorry about this mistake in your subscription. I will get right on fixing it, and per our terms of service, I can't tell you how you're going to come. How they're going to come. Sorry.
I actually have no question. I was throwing you a bone because only one person called in, but
how's it going, Coach? You're on next week. Why are you here now?
Because you were pulling out your little violin, you're talking about your 7 deadly sins. Only one person actually called you up.
Yeah.
And I couldn't have you end the show with only one person calling in.
No, I appreciate it. I do. Yeah.
So
Yeah,
Here's my
actually,
question.
while you're here, Coach is going to be on next week, Friday. Friday for us, Saturday for you in the Upside Down. And we're going to talk about AOS Financial, whatever the hell that means.
I've got my calculator. I've got my my suit and tie. I'm ready to go with accountancy.
Good.
So
good.
Here's a question for you.
Yeah.
I'll make up a question. All right. So we know what Broken Realms Techless is bringing. We know the different armies, and there's been leaks today. But what do you think Be'lakor is going to look like? We know that's the next story, and we know there'll be some things tied up with Be'lakor, and maybe the next one's destruction or whatever it might be. What do you think the cities or the allegiances, or what are some of the things you think are going to come with Broken Realms Be'lakor?
So we've gotten a cities thing. This is 2 for 2 now. All right, we got a cities thing in both Morathi and Techless. So I feel it's a fair bet. I give it a 50-50, right? I give it better than 50-50 odds that we're getting every Broken Realms is going to feature some city stuff.
Even though this one is a chaos one.
Yeah. I mean, because they're fighting somebody, it might be I mean, maybe they actually destroy a city and like now you don't get those rules anymore. I don't know. It's because the easy bet would be like we get a new like warband or some sort of like something chaosy, right? Like you've got your god marks and stuff like that. I think it's kind of a foregone conclusion we do get something like a lurid haze or like I think we're going to get some modifiers like that to. Is everything from Techless out? Because we see Nurgle for Techless.
Well, we know Broken Realms Techless has, is it Nurgle? It has the Siege of Sigmar. It has OBR, and it has Feck.
So we haven't seen Tzeentch in a little bit, have we?
Yeah, nor have we seen Khorne. So I guess, because Marathi's story was about, a bit of a backhand to Sigmar and took over Anvilgard and, become a goddess.
Mm-hmm.
We've obviously got Techless doing something, and obviously Bellacor's going to do. Well, we don't quite know what Techless is going to do other than being useful and not be Tyrion.
Mm-hmm.
But like, what is Be'lakor doing in response to all this, and what's the story and the people around him that the narrative is going to push forward? And like, ignore cities for a second. Like, who else comes to the party? Is it Khorne? Is it Beast of Chaos? Is that why we have that Stormcast rule that has that Stormcast model that's going to do buffs against Beast of Chaos? Are we about to enter Beast of Chaos meta that's going 5-0?
Yeah. See, my hope is Be'lakor is tied to BOC. My hope of hopes is I know Be'lakor is like Slaves to Darkness right now, but I mean my perception from a Beast of Chaos sort of vacation home player, one of my favorite armies in the game, in that I own like close to 200 gore, and so many Beast of Chaos models. I think like it's my dream, it's my wish list. When Slaves to Darkness came out, I remember gloating on my own show even that like finally Beast of Chaos got a buff because I had better ally units. Like the War Llama and Be'lakor was like my number one ally. And I'm like, oh, I can't wait to run Be'lakor. Like that was, I was making Phantasmagoria lists joking about Be'lakor being in them back in the day.
Well, funnily, I was meant to go to a tournament. When I went to a tournament, the Measured Gaming tournament, my very first opponent was going to be a Beast of Chaos with Be'lakor.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, it was a redraw, and I played 160 Chain Rasp. But that was scaring me. Like, I played Beast of Chaos, and I'm like, oh man, they're all right. But with Be'lakor, I'm like, okay, there's something in this. And you can only assume he's going up more than 400 points. Like, he's going to be outside of ally pool.
Yeah, so he's going to be Gotrek, right? Well, Gotrek point costed. Yeah.
Well, I'm hoping that you get the Gotrek mercenary type as well. Like, you bring him in Chaos, and he's your only. What if only like ally?
What if he goes to like out of allyship points, but has a caveat that says Beasts of Chaos can always take it. Not the whole Chaos Grand Alliance, but Beasts can. Nice little nod to them. I would like to see narrative-wise Be'lakor actually bloody Archaon's nose. I want to see... Be'lakor is like the one they throw in when they need a named character to lose a battle. to make it seem impressive. I talked about on the last show I did. I talked about like the monster heel, who's usually there to like, like Big Show. Big Show is always horribly booked because they want just the hugest, most badass dude to go and lose to some new talent that they're pushing to make them look good. But the thing is he only ever shows up to lose to the new talent to make him look good. And so like his sort of like character continuity is like he loses a lot and like he doesn't look that impressive anymore. And that's Be'lakor. Be'lakor is poorly booked. He's supposed to be the first prince. He's supposed to be all these like awesome. He's supposed to make you afraid of him. And on the table, like I actually really like even the old sculpt. I love the old rules. I love that he tonight use and points at somebody and they kind of suck. Like I like Be'lakor. I really do, kind of through and through. But narrative wise, he tends to just show up to like lose. In Wrath of the Everchosen, he showed up with Archaon and did something, but it was Archaon's win, right? So I want him to strike out on his own. I want him to do something awesome. And I hope it's a little bit of like I hope we finally get the thing that I've always wanted, which is a second main named thing in Chaos that's like challenging Archaon for the throne.
So you're a wrestling man, and I just had this thought. Khorne and Slaanesh don't like each other. Nurgle and Tzeentch don't like each other.
Right.
I wonder if we're about to see a Survivor Series where we're about to see Archaon with 2, and we see Be'lakor with 2.
Oh,
because there's going to be a civil war going on, right? Like
that would be metal. Yeah.
Maybe Be'lakor boosts up Khorne, and we've already got Slaanesh in the meta. We've already got Tzeentch in the meta. Is there some type of Archaons with 2 of them, and then Be'lakor brings up 2.
Yeah, and like, Archaon in the current story has been looking for Slaanesh. That's been like the whole shtick. That's gotta, one of the Chaos Gods doesn't want Slaanesh found. They like it better. I mean, that could drive a rift in Chaos, right? And that could be Be'lakor being like, "Yo, I like this. I like this angle." And I want Beast of Chaos to get a buff. I think we're going to see a Beast of Chaos buff. My thing is, I don't think Kragnos. My first hope was like, "Hey, this is going to be Beast of Chaos." Now I'm thinking I think it's destruction. I think Kragnos is destruction. Like, that's my hope. It's a new destruction thing. And I've even said that, like, the Centaur pictured, I'm not even convinced that the Centaur pictured is necessarily Kragnos. They could be pulling a Cataclysm video thing. What's that?
Yeah, I don't think so. I think that picture is
it's just, hey, look at the city.
Like look what's been done to my city. I've come back from a raid or whatever it is, and my city is in ruins.
Right. In the Catacross videos, when the Ossiarch Bone Reapers were coming out, you heard Catacross talking, but the stuff we saw was like Vok Mortian, and we saw all this stuff. We didn't know it was Catacross talking until the 3rd video. Right? Catacross, the Mortarch or whatever. We didn't know who was talking.
Well, it's like Alinda as well, right? Alinda, everyone thought it was Isabella von Carstein coming back, and they ran with that for ages.
Yeah.
But if the 4th book is going to be destruction, Order's gotten a lot of love. I wonder if this is going to be the civil war for Chaos, and I think Chaos fighting themselves would be at least sweet for me.
Oh, I would like to see it too. Like this is called the Age of Sigmar, right? We already had the Age of Chaos. Like, at the end of the day, the game, they can't turn this into 40k where it's grim dark and everyone's going to die and everyone's going to lose, blah, blah, blah. That's not the narrative I want from Age of Sigmar. I want Age of Sigmar to be the slow grind back to civilization. And so, like, Chaos, Order has had some setbacks lately. Slaanesh is about to bust free, man. If you look at, like, what the armies are getting, like, yeah, they keep getting armies because Order and Chaos always get armies. But, like, if you look in terms of the narrative, like, Order hasn't really had a whole bunch of W's. They didn't stop Nagash. They aren't going to stop Slaanesh from getting out. Like, if you look at the big campaign story plots, Order's kind of been losing, They've been losing ground. And now, Teclis is about to go march on Shyish at basically the worst time he could decide to do it. Because Slaanesh is going to bust out. And, so, like, you're over here going to punish Nagash for the Necroquake, which, first of all, that was sweet because, the Necroquake made, like, made like awesome endless spells across the realms, and like really from a narrative stance, the Necroquake really helped shape Age of Sigmar as a setting to be something more than like generic and like really. There was a lot of empty canvas before. I feel like we got a lot of canvas filled in with the Necroquake. Why is this mythic fantasy setting different from other mythic fantasy settings? They told me why with the Necroquake, right? And so Teclis, come on, man. You made an entire species of elf and abandoned it. Are you really the main judgment of who's committed crimes against elf manatee out there? Get out of here. Get out of here. I hope he gets slapped down so hard. I mean, he's not. It's called Mortal Realms Teclis, so he's the feature character. But my hope is that he gets pummeled.
Yeah, hopefully in at least the third book. He's been the running joke since Warhammer Fantasy Battles. He was the Joker. Yeah, I don't know. I think for me, we're in the age of chaos right now. Chaos dominates the tables. There's a lot of stuff going on with chaos.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been reading a lot of like Warhammer Fantasy lore, just trying to dig in for my own armies on parade. And you always hear about the chaos infighting. The gods are always striving for power. Even Skaven, Skaven has ascended. The Great Horn Rat has ascended to the Chaos Pantheon,
and they're mad.
Yeah, but we don't quite see it coming about. So for me, I'd love to see supercharged chaos.
Yeah. I'm for it.
That was my question. I just wanted to know what your thoughts, and maybe before I go, who comes with the party. So every book has had a couple of other books, other armies around it.
Mm-hmm.
Who else is going to be in who's getting a buff or who's getting some love in Broken Realms Be'lakor?
Beasts of Chaos, they're getting a buff. I believe, I wouldn't be surprised if we see some like Skaven stuff. Like, what if Be'lakor actually ends up like partying with Skaven and Beasts of Chaos? Huh? That'd be pretty cool.
Ooh.
That'd be pretty intriguing. So I'd like to see some, like, maybe Skaven's actually featured in there. I think you're going to get one of the other 4 Chaos Gods. You're either going to get Khorne or Tzeentch, because neither of them have showed up in these previous 2. And whichever one you don't get is going to be in Broken Realms Kragnos. So you might get Khorne with Be'lakor, and then you'll get Tzeentch with Kragnos, or vice versa, right? So I think that's going to happen. You'll get some Order stuff, because they've gotten stuff every single time. Maybe we see some like more Night Haunt. It's possible that the Broken Realms Teclis boxes actually sort of foreshadow some stuff for Be'lakor, right?
Well, we've got that new Night Haunt model that got previewed a few weeks ago.
Right. So that might be coming with Be'lakor. So we might see Night Haunt. They already alluded to Olander like getting ready to do some shit, and we know that Mannfred's about to do something. So I mean, it's going to be cool. Is there going to be a Broken Realms after Kragnos? I mean, that's the $1 million question. I think that they could keep Broken Realms going. Like 3.0 can come out, and then we can have Broken Realms continue. I think they learned from Psychic Awakening, personally. I think they're going to be a little bit more mindful going forward. That's my hope, anyway. If I'm wrong, I will be super upset, and you'll be the first to hear about it, chat gang. But like, I like the idea of the evolving narrative. I thought Malign Portents, which is the thing that precursored 2.0, I thought that was really cool.
Yeah,
I was really into the idea that like, yeah, maybe the execution wasn't awesome, where like you were supposed to go to your GW and it affected stuff, but like just the idea that like they were releasing gameplay stuff that changed the game. Like you had your little Malign Portents pack of like rules to play with, and then at the end,
it was the first time. It was the first time it introduced command points that. Because at the time, for anyone who is new to Sigmar, command points, you got one command ability, and it used to be only through your general, so no one else's command ability could be used, and Malign Portents brought that in. I always think that we just didn't spend enough time in Portents. I think we could have sat in the space a little longer, because it seemed like it was over so quickly, and then we're into Soul Wars.
Yeah, you wanted like that one full year of calendar events, Like we barely got to scratch the surface. It was such a cool rollout too, because you had the portents all coming out, like all the harbingers, right? And I mean that was so cool. You got new models.
Yeah.
That's my hope, is that Broken Realms doesn't make that mistake, and Broken Realm sticks around through the transition, so that we get to live with that narrative and that transition a little bit, and then they can lock it down, because we get 3 years with an edition effectively. That use this as a bridge and keep extending that. I think that's a really good idea. The fact that your fan base is always going to have a promise of potential of something new and revitalization to units, that only does good for the company and the game and the feeling that the game is healthy and that it's not stagnating. And the Broken Realms stuff is a really great foil for, quite frankly, just getting us more content more routinely and keeping things moving, as opposed to waiting, wait for GHB, wait for Winterfac, wait for GHB.
Well, it gets, and you've only got to see the short stories that are delivered every fortnight that gets people talking. Short stories about Mannfred, short stories about whatever it might be. And I know you were talking earlier about being a writer and being in the game design space.
Mm-hmm.
But the opportunity for fan fiction and people to contribute short stories, to scale the lore and to talk about things that probably aren't getting the full Black Library book, but there are stories to be told. And I love, and this would drive model sales. People would be excited to build their narrative hero or whatever it is. Right.
No, I'm 100% with you. And Coach, I'm going to say this just for you. I read the Mannfred story on stream on Sunday night, I think it was. I'm going to go ahead and sorry, Doug, 2+ tough. I'm gonna release a narrative video. Get wrecked. No, I can never compete with Doug.
Do
The
it.
man's the
Do
best.
it.
No,
Do
I'm
it.
gonna release the video of me reading it. I might even edit it and put some cool graphics on it to really zhuzh it up. But I will say, after having read that Mannfred story, 2 things. The greatest crime Mannfred ever committed was not being Vlad, and for that I may never forgive him. But after reading him, after reading that short story, I liked him a little bit more. I actually thoroughly enjoyed his arrogance.
I'm looking at Mannfred right now. He won me best death before I retired my Legions of Night army.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm actually pretty excited, man. Actually, one more question I will drop off, because this is the longest question known to man, is skeletons.
Yes.
Now, the new skeleton surprised me. I was surprised. Look, zombies, I get it. Bats, I get it. But skeletons, that release has thrown me off. I was surprised to see them update the skeletons, because these skeletons are from 7th edition. I think they're good. What are your thoughts on the new skeletons, and will you be rushing to replace your existing skellies with new skellies?
I'm with you. I actually like the sort of like, Jason and the Argonauts, Army of Darkness, old skeletons, like the naked skeletons. I think is like the vernacular we as a death community have accepted. So I like those skeletons. And I'm really surprised that Skeleton Warriors got updated in this manner, because they have so much personality and equipment now. Like they're encroaching on Graveguard in terms of like.
I was thinking they were going to be new Graveguard to separate the two.
Right.
Like I would have expected direwolves to get updated, because I'm using Fenrisian wolves. Like I've got 25 Fenrisian wolves.
Yeah, the Haywo take 200,000 Fenrisian wolves are now crying. They're now howling as they know they're all about to be retired for proper direwolf sculpts. Right. The first thing to be replaced in my army will be that.
But it was the skeletons that surprised me. Like I didn't see that one coming, and I don't know if I will update my skellies. I like the old.
So here, let me help you with this, and I'm gonna, because when you get into the content creation business, entertainment in general, you're always selling something for somebody else. That's what it means to be in entertainment, whether you like it or not. So make your peace with it. Shill and shill harder. So what you should do is you should buy a box or 2 anyway and mix them in with your skeletons. That way you have a progression of decay through the units. The ones that are naked skeletons are clearly the ones that have been resurrected the most and have been in the most battles. They've been beaten up and their armor's just fallen off. The ones that have the armor are the newer resurrected skeletons. And so you get that really cool sort of evolving visual through your army that really makes it look like it's a unliving, unbreathing, undead army that like kind of spans, countless battles. And this isn't new. Yeah. So I think you buy a few boxes and you mix them in. You don't completely replace them all. You
I would have, if anything, if I was going to update the Skellies, I would have expected them to dip into the Dogs of War and bring me some non-human Skellies. Give me some Seraphon.
Well,
give me
these
some
ones
orcs,
these
give
ones are
me
taller.
some halfling.
They're elves.
Yeah, but like give me like you've probably seen the Dogs of War Curse Legion, right?
Yeah.
I loved that. I loved having a dwarf skelly in there. I loved having a Saurus guard in there. Like,
Right.
give me some diversity.
This is where zombies have the advantage because like I'm sorry. Like zombies you can like take another model and like, cut it up a little bit and green stuff here and paint it all fetid and corpse like. Zombies have an advantage in that respect. With skeletons, like you're staring at the bare bones, so you kind of need that aesthetic, right, to do some heavy lifting. We got Skaven ghosts, and I was so pleased with that. I'm like, is this a new era? Do I finally have that like Neapolitan undead that I want? Like the stories talk about Beast Claw Raiders resurrected, right? Like show me the ogre skeleton. Now Curse City did show me ogre zombies. And I was pleased about, like, I'm super pleased with that. But like, yeah, I think this is where they take.
Where's the zombie Maw Crusher? Where's the zombie Stonehorn?
Yes.
Where's the zombie Star Drake? Like, give me the zombie. Give me everything. Give me a zombie Mega Gargant. Where is my zombie Mega Gargant?
Yeah. Give me all the zombies. But to your point, I would love to see. They could take a page out of 40K here, where they sell their little like their little kits for their Marines, you could print money if you just sold me little blisters of different types of skeletons, right? It would print money. You just, here's the like ogre kit, like here's the, well, maybe not ogres because they'd be a different size, but you could be like, here's the elves and here's the dwarves, and you could do stuff like that, I'd love to see the occasional like demon in there too, because the stories, like Nagash resurrects a bloodletter, like show me some of that cool stuff, man.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm 100% with you. All right, that was the longest question known to man. I gotta go for a work meeting. But thank you for answering my questions, and I look forward to my 7 pieces of OnlyFans content returned to me.
Yeah, no, I got you. I got you covered.
Awesome. I will. I'll come next Friday.
All right. Take care. We'll see you next week, buddy.
Thanks. Thank you. Bye.
All right. That was unexpected and pretty fantastic. This is my least favorite castle bit. Was easily the best part. The Mannfred story was it wasn't bad. It wasn't bad. Like I said, I read it. I'm gonna go ahead and release that video. I had one of two options tonight: either work on that video and edit it and get it up when Tyler had some family stuff come up, or try to like re-envision what I was gonna do tonight. I'm happy I plowed through and did the show, but I'm gonna get that video. We'll see how lazy or how motivated I am. I like to. I've been getting better at editing, so I'll probably try to edit something together and get that up. And then yeah, so I liked the Mannfred story. It gave me an appreciation for the character that other stories haven't. Like the absolute bravado and swagger, and like the nonchalance, like where he just didn't care. I really enjoyed that. Like I really enjoyed the. Yeah, I read the whole thing. I really enjoyed that. Like it really, like that's what I needed from Mannfred. I needed to see that like he's not a sniveling coward. He just doesn't care. Because he so much seems like a sniveling coward. But and cowardice is like my least favorite personality trait in characters and stories. I hate cowards. So I'm like, oh, okay, like he's not a coward, like he's actually like pretty like super arrogant and has all this bravado, and it's not worth his time to do this and that. Like it goes to the Sigvald thing, it goes to the Nagash thing. I really enjoy arrogant villains. I don't. Maybe it says something about me. I don't know. Liked both. Yeah. I gotta go back and read more of them. Maybe I'll just read the Broken Realm series to like for I got it. This is how I solve the algorithm, and I get more likes. I get more eyeballs. I read lore. So, um, any final thoughts, anybody? Any last questions before we get out of here? Oh, hang on. We got another caller on the screener here. Hello, welcome to RantCast. You're live with Mr. Mephisto.
Oh, hey there. Hey there. This is Travis, Vampire King.
Where are you calling for? Where are you calling from, Vampire King?
Just the ship out at sea.
Oh, there you go.
Connection's kind of bad.
Right on. What's your question for the show?
So I know we're talking about Mannfred and other things like that. Do you think that what do you think's going to happen with like Mannfred and Neferata? Do you think that because we know that they've are on some side mission right now with Broken Realms Techless? Is that what's going to release the Soulblight Gravelords, or are we getting like a third vampire, new Mortark?
I kind of hope that they don't do a new Mortark this time. They can save down the line. We have so many Mortarks. Nagash just broke the glass for 2 new Mortarks, right? And we already don't really have a place for all of our Mortarks because Archon is kind of like lost in a weird sort of between land of kind of being able to do some Ossiarch Bone Reaper stuff. Like part of me would love, in general, I want new Age of Sigmar characters so much. I want a new Mortark that's a new character. But honestly, it feels like Neferata has one of the better like Black Library series, and they haven't really like shown me in the game. And Mannfred showed me he's got potential. So I'm gonna go on characteristic here. I want them to really be fleshed out and really kind of bring it in this book. We can get a Soulblight Gravelords 2.0 down the line, or we can get a second half release like they did with LRL, where we get a new Mortark. I think that whatever this crazy mission is like maybe they're going out and they're actually like uniting the bloodlines, clans type thing. Maybe we get a new Mortark. We don't need necessarily a new Mortark if we just got like a new named awesome character on a dragon, right?
Right. Well, I mean, so we know that there's the Rat Prince and the Milady. That are 2.
Annika,
so what if we get Annika? What if we get more of their court or like courts? Flesh out. So maybe not Mortarks, but we get the tier 2 generals for them. And get more of those characters. Yeah,
like the sort of like the viceroys of all of them, right? Like that's what I like. That's what I want to see. I want to see like 4 sub-allegiances, and we've seen kind of 2 of them, right? Like we've got the rats, we've got the mosquito/moth that's Annika. You kind of have wolves with Radical the double wolf. So you've kind of got wolves there. I think we're kind of missing. So we got insects, we've got rats, we've got canine. Those are like kind of the main ones, and then you got mist. There's got to be a court of mist in there, right? Give me that 4th. Give me like 4 bloodlines. Dragon. 4th bloodline's probably a dragon too. Give me the blood dragon, the classical. What became Blood Knights? We had the blood dragon bloodline. Give me something like that. Dracula. Dragon, like that's literally what Dracula, like that was, the Dracula mythology was one of the most classical understood one. Son of the Dragon was his like moniker. Give me like the dragon bloodline too, but in that like Eastern creepy European, their version of the dragon, not our like awesome built up. When they talked about Son of the Dragon, they basically meant son of the fucking devil.
Yeah, I want like the heads on spikes.
Yeah, give me
everything.
Yeah, give me that like crazy over the top. Neffy's big on cats. Yeah, like a little like a cats are the gatekeeper to the undead realm sort of thing. There's so much stuff to do with it. I want at least 4 sub-allegiances. I want them all to have the courts, right? wolf, bat,
I absolutely agree.
wolf, bat, insect, and dragon, right? There's 4 easy ones to print, and then we can go with like the esoteric ones too later on, like Court of the Mist, Court of the Moon. We can do some really cool stuff where like you've got those 4 sub allegiances. Make sure all of those models that are like the sort of leaders of or the main ones representing them are adequately awesome. But give me like stories like with Olander. Olander's model like kind of feels bad on the table, but I have no doubt why Olander is the Mortark of the Night Haunt when you read her
Right.
stories. She dusted the freaking Celestant Prime.
Yeah, just done and dusted. Just gone.
Like just ruined. And like all these like named Zinchian characters and stuff like that when they stormed the All Points just ruined them. And I'm like, oh yeah, like do that with these Court of the, like have them kill a Bloodthirster. That's the 40k thing where like just someone kills a Bloodthirster to show they're
Right.
badasses. Do the equivalent story wise with these characters. Like the rules by necessity must often be balanced, and you got to play my 2,000 points versus your 2,000 points. So we're taking a little bit of a liberty with how cool they could be rules wise, like, or not liberty. We're hamstrung from how cool they can be rules wise, but like
Because they're so cool.
narrative wise, like just make them awesome.
Yeah.
I don't care if there's like a disconnect there. I don't like. I don't. I accept that the game is the game, and that the stories are actually the real, like that they're the that's the reality.
Yeah,
In a weird
absolutely.
like
Well,
go ahead.
and I just can't wait to read it from like because the battle tomes are all propaganda, right? I can't wait to. I want it to be complete propaganda for them, regardless of what the rules are, right?
Yes. That's the best way to write battle tomes too. Is like just it's propaganda. They're the coolest thing, like ever. Just make them as cool as I think they should be. I would take it as a kindness if the models are also, give me an excuse. I want to play these cool models. But like, just make them as awesome as, like, have them actually ruin Teclis's plans. Like just have them just like Teclis shows up being this elf, human elf. I'm here to elf stuff up, and then they're like, actually, you know what's cooler than elves? Fucking vampires. Edgelord to the max, all the haughtiness and arrogance, but like we fucking eat you rather than just like, I don't know, prattle on about our superiority. We also prattle on about our superiority, but then we eat you, and that somehow makes it cooler for me.
And we just drink your blood. Yeah, I mean, as much as I'd love for obviously vampires and something like that, I don't think that's coming. I do think it'd be cool if we got like a Broken Realms, or not Broken Realms, White Dwarf like battalion or something that would have like a spice.
I want the
or something
Wraith.
like
I
that.
really wanted the Wraith fleet to be like
I
a
did
sub
too.
allegiance. My hopes was like, yeah, I got my high gothic vampires that I want that are turned to AOS-y. They really. Am I James Workshop? I don't know. When I'm having my insomnia
if we
fits,
get the Wraith fleet, we would know that you are. It is confirmed.
confirmed.
You are James Workshop.
I'm James Workshop. I wanted the Wraith fleet like as a that's where again we go into our esoteric other sub allegiances. We get our 4 folklory ones, and then we get something like of the Moon or Mist, and then we get like the Wraith fleet, which Wraith fleet fits the Mist for me. Their whole thing is they show up wreathed in mists and ghosts.
Yep, that would work, and it's been mentioned in other battle tomes.
Yep.
So
So the Wraith fleet shows up. That's my Mist that I want, right? So they show up. They have a 1 in 4 ability with Night Haunt, so like they can 1 in 4 Night Haunt.
Yep.
And then like you get we've got our sweet rat prince. We've got Annika, Lady Annika. You could have that vampire captain model, right? And then like just a couple nods that like inspire people to convert a little bit more or whatever. Like, yeah, I'm gonna run my skeletons, but I'm gonna maybe run the naked skeletons and like green stuff hats on them, right? Like when my naked skeletons have rice hats, like
that's awesome.
Like just give me an excuse, right? Just give me an excuse. It's you pretty much put it on my tombstone when it comes to how I feel about this game. Let's see. We already know that Mannfred and his pet can destroy what appears to be a great demon of Nurgle. Yeah. And it was spoilers!
That was so good.
It was a good story.
I mean, say you go from Techless to Bellacore. Maybe they actually punch somebody in the mouth, whether it's they show up and fight the orcs, or they punch Order or something like that in the mouth. Bellacore actually does something cool, and then you have Soulblight Grave Lords that actually punch Nurgle in the face, something like that.
In my dream of dreams, we get like, I want a Broken Realms Olander. If I had,
that'd
like,
be good. Yeah.
people were like, "Do you want Broken Realms Nagash?" I'm like, "No, just fix Nagash's War Scroll and Broken Realms Techless, and we'll call it even." Like, I don't need, or
Yeah.
maybe that's not a possibility now because everyone's seen the teasers, but like, I don't need. He doesn't need a whole campaign unto himself. The whole second edition was like basically the Nagash show. I don't need. I'm okay with him, exit stage left and like moving off. He's my favorite character, but like, I don't want him saturating everything because, like, again, for me, support characters they're cool because, like, they get to be cool. If you're the main character, then you have like all these expectations. Right. You outwear your welcome. You have to drive the narrative too long. You can't just go and do something sweet the whole time.
Yeah, I'd love to see Nagash go back to like Puppet Master mode.
Well,
and,
he's
pulling strings and
he's got other machinations. Like,
yeah,
like we just saw the fruition of like one 100,000-year-old plan. We just saw skeletons carried a grain of sand from the far reaches of the realm in secret.
Yeah. They still have one of the 8 points too. Like, they're the only ones to have one of the 8 points away from chaos.
Yeah,
like, that's a legitimate thing.
Yeah, no, like we like Death. We did some shit. Like, we're good. We can. Like, I don't want us to like completely fade from the narrative like Destruction seems to have. That feels bad. You should write all their stories like propaganda for everyone's factions, and they should all like. If it's like a Animorphs, I have Animorphs on the brain lately. I don't know why. I apologize. Hey, remember Animorphs had a rotation, right?
Yeah.
You had Jake, Rachel, Tobias, Marco, Cassie. Later on, they added, what was it, Axe, right? And then
Well, and then there was every once in a while you'd get the actual guy who was the the alien species. I cannot remember who was the Animorph, right? Like,
yeah, that's Axe or whatever.
Yeah,
they added Axe later on. Yeah.
Yeah.
But like how they like every other like they had a rotation to their books. Do that with the narrative.
Like they'd get each one of them, and they'd get a new animal, and then you go to the next person, and they get a new animal.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. They had a rotation in Animorphs. Do that with people's allegiances. Like, nobody should ever be out of the spotlight for that long.
I mean, I totally agree. And what you were saying with Coach about Broken Realms, I'd love to. I think that these books, we know Games Workshop likes printing books, right? But I think that these give them an avenue to give 4 people something, right? So they could continue just putting these out, every 3 months, whatever they want to actually do. Mm-hmm. And they're giving 4 armies something. Maybe you don't get something that great this time, but maybe the next time it comes around, you get to be, the star in that book, and then 3 other people get something, right? It at least gives, even if you don't like the rules for FEC or OBR, something to talk about and think about and be like, okay, well, is this something to use? Is this not something to use? Yes or no?
Well, I talk about the recency bias in Age of Sigmar kind of constantly. Like, some stuff just falls out of favor because it hasn't been recent. Like, something like a Broken Realms lets you reassess what you have. It gets you looking at your battle tome in a different way. Even if the thing that comes out in the new book isn't top tier, S tier competitive, right? You go like, wait, okay, maybe that doesn't. But you're rereading your book because you're trying to find the stuff that works with that, and then along that way you discover something else, and it revitalizes you for your book. Like,
it gives you a reason to dust off the book, crack it open again, and either see if the thing that they put out is better than what you already have, or if you have something else that's better than that, right?
Right. And while trying to find interactions with the thing that came out, you sometimes find interactions that you missed before. So, like, you don't even use the new thing, but you're like, oh, crap, I didn't even realize that this battalion worked with that thing before. And it's just existing stuff that was overlooked because stuff came out, we got tournament reports, people said this list was broken, that list was bad, and we solved the battle tome. And then we moved on to the next battle tome. And a battle tome like Cities of Sigmar, where that puzzle can just constantly be solved for a new and better thing. or not new and better thing, but a new innovation. There's
Mhm.
always some innovation in a book like that. Like, and things like this give you that like sort of second wind to reassociate or to evaluate your own battle tome, and at the very least, the excitement, the number of people right now that saw Sloppity Bile Piper is getting a freaking battalion, that are now telling me new builds they want to try instead of just 45 Blight Kings. I'm like, I'm proud of you.
Well, I mean, because that's exactly it, right? Well, because I mean, you think about you could have two things. So when you look at like the FEC box, you could have had people that have been playing FEC and were only playing, well, I play 5 dragons and monster trucks, and I just push these across the table, and I don't do anything. I don't need to do anything else. Now they see this book and they're like, oh, well, now I can get the archery gen, I can get 20 ghouls, and I can get 3 horrors or flares. Well, I'll pick that up, and now all of a sudden I can run a completely different list if I wanted to, rather than just pushing around my 5 monster trucks.
Right.
Or you could have somebody that was only Mortec Guard deck, and now they're like, okay, now I can get some death ponies, and I can run not the battalion that they gave me here, but I can run the one that already existed in the book, but I didn't ever pick up Death Riders before.
Right. I was told that like I should bring 100 Mortec Guard because it was the most used unit at Nova or LVO or whatever, and I'm like, yeah, because they have 2 battle line and that's the cheaper one. What the fuck did you expect? That's a non-statistic. I mean, it says nothing.
Right.
All it says is that like this army has 2 battle line and people brought the cheaper one. What the hell do you expect? They brought a lot of the cheaper one. Get out of here. Like what are you trying? And people would like post that statistic like Mortec Guard are overpowered, and I'm like, you're dumb. That's a false equivalency. Like you're drawing a conclusion between like. Yeah. Anyway.
Well, you're drawing a conclusion between. I mean, not only that, but they're also not only are the points cheaper, but like actual dollar wise, they're cheaper too. So like if you
get
wanted
60
to,
for $20, or you get 20 for $60. It's so
20. Yeah, it's so good. Like it's economical from like actual financial, and then even in the game. So like it's totally.
What
a
did
false
you
equivalency.
expect?
Right.
Yeah. Correlation does not equal causation. Correct. Yeah. So I don't know. It was. Yeah. I like what they're doing with Broken Realms. I finally let go. 3rd edition's coming. I'm like, okay. I wanted a little bit longer with the thing I like, but now I'm trying to I'm hyping myself back up. Because I don't like that we're going to a smaller table if that's true, but I'm like, okay, well now I have a new puzzle to solve. So like I have that capacity to like, well, what's the puzzle? And then like that
Smaller
gets me
table
excited.
Just means I get to have another beer at the table and not be worried about it knocking
stuff over. Boom. Way to look at the beer glass half full.
Exactly.
I mean, sometimes it's just a matter of shifting your perspective, Like
yeah.
Like if you'd be surprised how acceptable something is. Again, this is kind of what we were talking about with first principles, right? Like we break ourselves down to what's at our core the most important. And for me, the most important thing is just playing Age of Sigmar. I almost don't care about a lot of stuff going on in the game. I can find ways to have tons of fun with this game based on whom I'm playing. I love the story and the narrative. I know, gross. The competitive guy just mentioned he likes the narrative. No, I've already pointed out that like obviously if you only care about competition, there's probably other stuff out there that's lower resistance for your competition with better reward. People play Age of Sigmar because they're on board with community.
Well, I mean, there's a reason Guild Ball didn't last, right? Like Guild Ball was supposed to be the perfectly balanced competitive game, and it was low model count, and you could get into it and things like that. I mean, and it's been said tons of times before, but not even chess is a perfectly balanced game. Like one person gets to go first.
Yeah, white goes first.
And there's still that aspect to it. Mm-hmm. So, but yeah, I mean, I'm right there with you. Like if Soulblight Gravelords it comes out and is the worst army, I'm still gonna job with it, and I will find ways to break that puzzle.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to 3.0. Soulblight. It's going to be hard for me to care. Worst case scenario, Soulblight isn't very good when it comes out. Like it's a Slaanesh thing where like there might be some low key heat in it, but you have to try twice as hard as other people to post as good of a record, which can be fatiguing at a tournament. You know what I do if that happens? Play my Ossiarch Bone Reapers.
I was like, play OBR.
Yeah. I just like, even with OBR, like, okay, so like I end up with a 3-2 ceiling or something because I have all these natural predators in the meta. So like I just have a 3-2 ceiling. Well, I'll dodge. I can go 4-1. And you know what?
Right.
It's for me, it's an army I'm so comfortable with that I'm already having all of my fun for showing up with it, and then I can solve the puzzle of Soul Blight in a lower stress environment with like friends and stuff.
Yeah, well, I mean, if that comes out, just call me up and I'll drive over and we'll just fix the puzzle Soul Blight Graveyard for fun and then play OBR.
Glass half full. I don't have to build as big of a table anymore in my office. My office, I'm taking up 1/3 with my new desk setup. This is pretty prolific. If some of y'all in chat gang remember the old camera angle where you can see my like fireplace and my mantle and stuff, you had a pretty good idea of like 2/3 of the room is that way. I didn't used to take up this much space for like my streaming space. So I've taken up more space, which means I have less space for the table. But if the table's smaller,
and your James workshop, so you made the table smaller.
That's
it. In your office.
It's like Memento. I don't even realize what I'm doing when I become my James. Tyler Durden. Like I have no idea what I'm doing when I'm in my James workshop persona.
Right.
Like I made the table smaller. There was a logic to it because like on my primal level, I was upset that my office got smaller. I'm like, I'm going to make the table smaller. That will solve my problems. Like, if I look at everything that happens in Age of Sigmar selfishly, I'm always happy with what's going on.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it also means I have enough terrain from all my Warcry stuff to now for the smaller table. So
yeah. I mean, that's pretty awesome. Yeah, I'm super happy. Any other questions? Anything else?
I got nothing else.
All right. Well, thank you for calling in.
Absolutely. Thank you for taking the call while we're out here at sea.
Yeah. Excellent. Sigil says, I just build a Sylvaneth list that handily beats the Blight spam. Oh, well, there you go. Overhaul of Beasts of Nurgle and a cost spike and new ability for Scrivener. Oh, what happened? Yes. Yeah. Yep. All right, everyone. I think that'll do it for me. Unless anyone else has some quick fire questions. I believe that'll do it for me tonight. I had a great show. I hope you all enjoyed it. I hope you walk away from this, like I said, with some common language. Most people are pretty intuitive when it comes to like when a rule doesn't sit right with them or something like that. Like you feel it, why you feel it's bad. And so the goal is to give you language to use, give you identifiers, and to give you techniques to sort of extrapolate down to the first principles mode, understand the premise or search for a premise, and then look through those 7 deadly sins. Thank you everyone for joining me. Thank you everyone who called in. All the questions in chat. Chat gang, you are the show within the show. You're the reason I do this thing. Remember to drink your milk, pay your taxes, and I will talk to you next time. I'm excited. I'm changing gears. I'm excited at possibilities and potential. I think that's what Broken Realms are. I think that's what 3.0 is. If I have that shift in perspective, the doom and gloom is the clouds part a little bit. And so I recommend you maybe break it down a little bit you break it down a little bit to your first principles of why you play Age of Sigmar, what you love about this game. Maybe it's people, the people aren't going away or changing. There's plenty of great people in this community. So, Kicker dropping 1,000 RDP, Hotspur dropping 1,000 RDP to remind everyone that chat gang ain't nothing to fuck with. Outro.